And now for our feature presentation.
He'll be fine on the mountain.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
Line drive right field, base hit. South Carolina wins the College World Series.
Watson, touchdown! Hunter Renfrow.
He got him, and it's all over. Coastal Carolina rules the roost. They win the championship. And South Carolina has won the national championship.
The Senegal baseball team has done it again, but this time the Bulldogs beat one of the top teams in the country. They are giant killers.
Get the ball to Bennett. He does.
Gamecocks are in the Final Four.
A lot of old memories. Coach Spurrier used to do a Easter egg hunt, his wife Jerry with the kids out here, so I can remember my little girl that's 12 now. Collecting Easter eggs out here. And, I said I wanted to do that.
A new era begins with Gamecock football. Shane Beamer, officially the 36th head football coach of the South Carolina Gamecocks. Greetings and a good afternoon, and welcome aboard the JB and Goldwater Show, driven by our friends and yours at Stokes Volkswagen. It is Monday, December the 7th, in remembrance of Pearl Harbor, generally and always, every year in America. We also today will recognize that a new man is in charge in Columbia. God bless those from this tragic day so many years ago. And God bless Shane Beamer coming home to South Carolina. The JB and Goldwater Show until 3 p.m. today. It is a special introducing Coach Shane Beamer to all of you. We'll carry his press conference live coming up at 2 p.m. To the right of your screen, that is Darren Goldwater. I'm Jamie. And we thank you so much for joining us today. And if you're watching, if you're listening, make sure you've downloaded the all-new JB and Goldwater app. That's where you can do that for free daily. Also, our season tickets are available there as well. If you don't have one of those, you should get one. This past weekend was we passed a lot of information along through our season tickets, and many of you have now seen what's been going on kind of behind the scenes for this to happen. 843-321-8893 is our phone number. It's also our text line. And you can get us on social media across all platforms at JB and Goldwater collectively and individually at Darren Goldwater and at Sports Radio JB. Coming up at 12:15, Watch Fox's Mike Yuva will join us from Columbia, about an hour and 45 shy of the press conference today with President Bob Caslin, Athletics Director Coach Ray Tanner, and new head football coach Shane Beamer. 12:30, Gamecock Central's Wes Mitchell will join us, and then Pat DiMarco, former South Carolina star and NFL star as well. He will be on at 1 p.m. today to give his thoughts on the new hire. And at 1:20, J.C. Shurburtt of thebigspur.com, he will join us as well. And that'll take us up to about 1:55 this afternoon, when we'll take a quick break and we'll come back and get you to Columbia for the live press conference. You will be able to watch it through our platforms, and we hope that you'll stick around in its entirety today. And Darren, it is a very historic and I think emotional day in the program's history for Carolina football. But it is also a very energizing day. It actually feels very similar. I've already had a couple of people say this. No offense at all to Coach Will Muschamp, who I think is a fine man and really did the best he could. But this has similar feelings to 15 years ago when Steve Spurrier was hired as the next head coach on November the 23rd, 2004.
It gave me goosebumps, you just saying it like that. I'll say this. If you watched, and by now I'm sure you have, it was just part of our open, 20 seconds from Gamecock football on Twitter, Shane Beamer going into Williams-Brice Stadium, reminiscing of an Easter egg hunt when his now 12-year-old was little and getting choked up. Coaches don't generally get choked up when they get a job. It happens, Certainly. It absolutely happens, but it is not a regular occurrence. If you didn't know what this job meant to Shane Beamer before, you've got to know now. And that's a big deal. That's a really big deal to have somebody that invested, that cares that deeply. This isn't just a job. This isn't just an SEC job. It's not a Power 5 job. It's his dream job. We've been saying it for a couple of weeks. He's been telling Pat DiMarco and Steven Garcia and anyone he could tell, it's his dream job. And you've seen it. You just saw it. And I'm assuming we'll see similar emotion from the press conference today. If it doesn't get you excited, at least give you some pause to say, hey, let's see if this thing doesn't work out. Then I don't know what to tell you, because that was powerful.
No question. We've got plenty of behind the scenes stuff. Mike Uva again will join us in now less than 10 minutes. He's going to join us on Zoom today. Is that cool with you?
He can join us on Zoom.
He said he's cool with Zoom. He actually just sent me a text.
Okay.
So Mike Uva you'll be able to see Mike's beautiful face from the Midlands of the great state of South Carolina. To piggyback on Darren's comments there as well, though, for Gamecock fans who've been skeptical of this hire for a multitude of reasons, maybe it's because he's not been a head coach or not been a coordinator, which none of that has really mattered throughout this search. And that was made a point by Ray Tanner in the first press conference that he held following the dismissal of Will Muschamp. He stated that you did not have to necessarily be a sitting head coach or a former head coach or a current coordinator to be considered for this job. And obviously Shane Beamer has been a coordinator, a special teams coordinator, and he has been an assistant head coach. He is currently still at Oklahoma, where he will finish it out through the Big 12 championship game. But those other things that were thrown around, head coach and stuff like that, that wasn't necessarily a prerequisite to be able to land this gig. And so I would say this to South Carolina fans who've been skeptical. If you love the school, if you love the program, truly love it. Like, you're not a bandwagon fan that hopped on a couple of years ago and you think that you know more than everybody. Like, you've invested your time, you've invested your money. Maybe your kids are going to South Carolina. You went to South Carolina. It's a family thing. That's what you discuss when you gather around the kitchen table, when you gather around for the holidays, when you get together for your kids' birthdays, and when you go to the park, and whatever you do in life, somehow, some way, Gamecock athletics and Carolina football always comes up. If you truly love it and you've been skeptical of this hire, give it a chance, because there's a guy who now has been hired that loves it as much as you do. And that's never been said before. And no candidate ever in the history of this program has ever been as supported as Shane Beamer. Now, Steve Spurrier and Lou Holtz were incredibly supported coaches when they were hired, but they were supported because of their track record of success. Shane Beamer has been supported as a man, as a guy who once was here, and he is, quote, home. And the former players and many fans and administrators and those important to the Gamecock football program, because you're all important, have supported him heavily for a multitude of reasons. But Shane Beamer, most importantly, as you saw in that video that you just pointed out, Darren, he loves it. And the first story that he talked about, it had nothing to do with the game that they won. It could have been, I don't know, maybe upsetting number 1 Alabama in 2010. When he was asked, what are your fondest memories? He could have said something about a specific play. He could have mentioned one of those former players, anything, but no, he didn't. What he mentioned was an Easter egg hunt that Jerry and Steve Spurrier put together for the coaches and their families.
Yep.
He mentioned his family and what that school has meant to him. He mentioned his family. That should tell you exactly what Shane Beamer is trying to accomplish here, but in a bigger sense, a true family atmosphere where you can look around. There are certain programs in the country who have that, and they win, and they win big. And he wants to bring that to South Carolina, and he has spent his career under guys who have built programs like that. And he has spent his career under guys who have been successful on the football field and off the football field. All of that has kind of been thrown into what he has called his plan. And many have asked for the last couple of weeks, well, exactly what is this plan? Well, coming up at about 2:00 today, you're going to start to get a little bit of a sneak peek at that. And J.C. Shurburtt and Wes Mitchell and Mike Uva and Pat DiMarco will all add to that here over the next hour and 50 minutes until we get into that press conference. But as I mentioned, he talked about his family first. That tells you what you're getting in Shane Beamer.
Yeah. I mean, not only his family first, but he considers Gamecock athletics family. That's what family is to him. And again, the emotion says it all. I mean, words are one thing. Actions speak louder than words, right? I mean, that's one of the oldest sayings in the book. The emotion that is evident, that shows you that this is family. This is home to him. That's why the branding for Carolina has been welcome home, coach. He was born right here in Charleston. So this is home. And that's the type of guy that I think South Carolina needs. Now, whether it was him, someone else, that type of feel is exactly what Carolina needs, because you need someone who's that passionate, because as we've pointed out, this is not a major national brand and there are challenges on the recruiting trail. You need a guy that passionate that can not only be that, but then can sell that and can sell that vision. So someone who genuinely feels that way deep down inside, he's the one who can sell that.
Let me tell you what's going on in this state right now. Clemson's going to play for an ACC championship game with a trip to the college football playoff on the line. Coastal Carolina just upset BYU this weekend. College game day was in town, the most important day in that program's history. All the attention is on Shane Beamer at South Carolina right now. All of it. That tells you that tells you what this hire means to this program, what it means to this state, the type of attention that is getting. It is an energy boost for the Gamecock football program in the midst of everything positive that's going on around it within the borders of the Palmetto State. There all of a sudden is deep energy in Columbia, South Carolina with Shane Beamer. No, I did not misspeak. That's true. All those other things are also true. But this week, the focus will be on the future of Shane Beamer and Gamecock football.
Yep.
We'll all continue to talk about Coastal. We'll talk about Coastal today. We'll continue to watch Clemson. Keep in mind, these guys are playing for championships. Carolina is not. But this is exactly what Ray Tanner was trying to accomplish. Hire a guy who's qualified to be at South Carolina and who's going to energize his football program. And he did it. And that last name, Beamer, has resonated across the country. You've heard people like Chris Fowler say things like, truly pleased for Shane Beamer. I've watched his growth as a coach over the years. He brings a fresh approach with an old school foundation and a solid guy that players will really respond to. Gil Brandt, Pro Football Hall of Famer, former Cowboys VP of player personnel. Shane Beamer was a great hire by Gamecock football. He learned from two coaches I know well and greatly admire, his father, Frank, and Lincoln Riley. His team will have one hell of an offense and special teams. And we can go on and on. Obviously, we know about a lot of the former players who stood up and endorsed him, and we'll hear more about that throughout the program. Quickly, here is Shane Beamer's resume. He has spent 9 seasons as an assistant coach in the SEC. Overall, though, 12 seasons, because he was a grad assistant at Tennessee, but it goes back to 2000. He was a grad assistant at Georgia Tech. And then he moved on to Knoxville for 3 seasons with the Volunteers before heading over to Starkville, Mississippi as the cornerbacks coach and recruiting coordinator for Sylvester Croom with the Bulldogs. He then made his way to Columbia under Steve Spurrier. He coached the corners in 2007 and 2008. If you remember the corners that were on that team, most of them went to the NFL. And then in 2009, 2010, coached the linebackers and the special teams. Gamecocks had the best special teams group and one of the best linebacking corps in the SEC during his tenure. He would head to Virginia Tech as the assistant head coach to his father, Frank, and he was also the running backs coach up there, where he coached one of the best tailbacks in the ACC. At Georgia for 2 years, 2016 and 17, under Kirby Smart as the special teams coordinator and tight ends coach. And then he would head to Norman, and that's where he's been until now, under Lincoln Riley as the assistant head coach and tight ends coach of the Sooners. And that is the coaching resume for Shane Beamer. But now we'll head to Columbia, South Carolina for more on this hire, one who has been all over it over the last couple of weeks. And that is Mike Uva with Watch Fox, one of the best reporters we've got here in the state of South Carolina. And he's been kind enough to cut out a couple of minutes here on this Monday afternoon ahead of the press conference to introduce Shane Beamer to the Gamecock faithful. Mike, how you doing, bud?
Just staying busy. It's good to be back, though, at work. I'll tell you that much.
Yes, sir, man. I understand that. I know that you were kind of stalking the football building yesterday as Beamer landed and then made his way to the ops building. Nice video you put out. He told you it was great to be home. What else What else did you get out of him? What were your first impressions of Shane Beamer, and what were his first impressions seeing a rebuilt area around Williams-Brice Stadium?
Well, I think that's one of the things that I noticed right away, because as Ray Tanner and Coach Beamer got out of that car when they arrived at the ops building yesterday afternoon around, I'd say, 2:20. One of the first things I noticed under his breath, he just said, wow, just looking up. That's the first time he's had the opportunity to be able to see that building. And obviously it's much different compared to the last time when he was in Columbia coaching there as an assistant coach was under Steve Spurrier. So I think when you see something like that in person, you hear about it during the interview, you hear about it in terms of just, through the coaching, connections in terms of, okay, this is what South Carolina is doing. This is their new ops building. Oh, that's great. But when you are actually able to see it, and we had that opportunity when they built that to be able to walk through it as the media, it was one of the coolest things to be able to see. But as a former assistant coach that didn't have that at your luxury a couple of years back, I'm sure it's just blowing him away saying, man, this is going to be a tremendous recruiting tool on top of everything else that I felt like was already going to be able to help me now that I'm getting a head coaching opportunity.
When he was here at South Carolina under Steve, Mike, I know that you had not made your way to the great state of South Carolina just yet, but you were coming. We knew it. We knew you were on the way. When he was here under Coach Spurrier, he was a part of this future plan, because Eric Hyman designed this facilities blueprint, basically, of what he would like to see one day in Columbia. Of course, Ray Tanner took over that, added to it, and now you have what you have in the capital city. Did you get the sense that he looked back and thought, this is what we were trying to do? Wow, we did it.
Yeah, there's no question about it, because at the end of the day, being able to have that success during that early 2010 period, it really allowed South Carolina to be able to take that next step forward. You look at some programs like Vanderbilt, right? Beautiful city, beautiful in terms of just everything that it can offer you. But one of the things it doesn't offer you is the fact that they don't have great facilities. And that's something that Jordan Rogers over at the SEC Network mentioned this past week after Derek Mason was let go. Vanderbilt should be able to be a team that at least is respectable. They should be like a Kentucky in the SEC East when you think about just in terms of what they have in terms of the city and Nashville. You should be able to get recruits there, but they don't have that luxury. So for South Carolina, you're a football town. You should be a football town. You should be doing better than Vanderbilt year in and year out to begin with. You have a tremendous fan base. You have a tremendous location in terms of being in the center of the state. There's no reason why you shouldn't be able to compete. And when you have that opportunity to be able to build and have the type of facilities they have now, there's no reason why South Carolina should not be competing for SEC titles year in and year out once they get things generated. Because like we've seen South Carolina have success before. You're in one of the best places in the country when it comes to being able to get talent here. I understand you're going up against some of the guys like Georgia. I understand that Clemson, they're kind of a national powerhouse now. They can kind of recruit anywhere across the country, but there's no reason why being able to have the facilities that you have, that you're not able to recruit players to be able to compete and at least get into that top two conversation in the years to come in the SEC East.
Mike Uva, watch Fox Columbia, South Carolina on Twitter at Mike_Uva. That's UVA, but he's not a Virginia fan. It's his name. Nice Christmas tree, by the way. I've got one in every room in my house. I love it. Mike, you're one of the best at keeping your finger on the pulse of the fans. Oftentimes you engage with fans, good and bad, on social media. What has been your what is your feel of the fan base, those that you've interacted with over the last 24 hours?
I do want to get to a story though that involves Bob Caslin's son, who him and we had a little back and forth a year ago.
Yes.
I actually got some surprising news about that. I'll get to that in just a minute. But
please, yeah.
I think it's one of those things that, the first thing that stands out to some people that aren't on the, the Shane train is the fact that he doesn't have head coaching experience. And what I would say to that is this: the fact that he has been here, the fact that he understands what success looks like at South Carolina, he has the blueprint. He learned from one of the best coaches to not only coach in the SEC, but one of the best coaches in South Carolina history. We could talk about, the fallout with Spurrier, but at the end of the day, the guy knew how to win, especially when he was in his prime. So to be able to learn from that, to be able to have the alumni support is going to be huge. We've seen how Twitter, and I understand Twitter at the end of the day isn't always a reflection of the real world, but at the same time too, it also gives you a pulse of what people are feeling. And when you have guys like Javon Kinlaw and some of the former players not too excited or thrilled about some of the comments some fans are making, you need to be able to get them back here. And I feel like a guy like Shane Beamer can do that, because you'll have the guys like, the Steven Garcias of the world, the DJ Swearingers. You'll have those former players, TJ Gurley, Mo Brown. You'll have those guys back here, and that will be a huge asset for recruiting. So I think, yes, there's going to be some people that aren't going to be big believers in Shane Beamer. I understand that, but at the same time, too, he's a guy that's been around for a long time. He understands what success looks like, and he also knows what success, more importantly, looks like at South Carolina. So I'm thrilled to be able to see what he's going to be able to do, because I just like the fact that first quote, being able to hear from him right when he was walking into the office building. It's great to be home. This man is excited about this position. He's not just here. It's not like Hugh Freeze, I'm just trying to get back into the SEC. No. This guy wants to be here, and I think that is a huge, huge, huge factor that's going to help South Carolina in the coming years.
Mike, I mentioned at the top of the program, you know, my family has been in this fan base for ever. I mean, me personally, 35 years, but our 70 plus years. And I mentioned to Darren, look, if you can't get on the bandwagon, that's fine. But think about it this way. If you truly love this university, like love it, like you talk about it at dinner, when you get to your child's birthday party, when you go to the family Christmas party, whatever it is, that's all you talk about is Gamecock football, Gamecock athletics, just in general. Yeah. You finally have somebody that actually feels the same way that you do leading the football program. Right. I mean, you know, Steve Spurrier loved South Carolina. He learned to love it. He wanted to be here, but it was a different hire. You hired his record. It was Steve Spurrier. Same thing with Lou Holtz, who actually had spent time here as an assistant coach in the 60s, believe it or not. But this guy loves South Carolina like the fans do. That says something. What is the, and we'll probably learn more today, but how much of an impact do you think that, I mean, in addition to, he has a great resume, by the way, he has a wonderful resume. How much of an impact do you think that truly had with Ray Tanner from the get-go with this search?
I think that's one of the main reasons why from day one, this was their guy. You could also mention Billy Napier being in the mix. Those were the two guys that South Carolina was going heavy at. I mean, right from the beginning, those two guys. Yes, we could talk about Jamie Chadwell and some of these other coaching names. And you probably noticed I didn't talk about any of this stuff. And the reason being is coaching searches is the biggest popsicle headache, right? Because let's say Beamer was their guy. I put that out there. Someone puts that out there. Another team, right, fires their coach. Better opportunity, maybe a little bit more money, or maybe just like, hey, I like that position better. They end up going there now. Then you have egg on your face. That's why I think the whole coaching search, God bless my colleagues who followed it day in and day out. I got messages. I would go with it, but I can't even imagine the headaches that it creates. But I think, like I mentioned before, the fact that the former players love him, I think just speaks volume. And when you're trying to just be able to fix culture, right? Culture is one of those words we hear so much in sports, but especially football. I think it is so vital to be able to have that support for the players. So when you hear that, I'm sure many former players reached out to Ray Tanner and said, hey, coach, look, we want to let you know this is the guy that we need to be able to get here. Look at the NFL talent that we were able to produce during those years. Look at the success that we were able to produce during those years. And being able to have that love for South Carolina, I think is what made the difference and separated Beamer, on top of the fact of that experience of being here, as opposed to someone that might have had head coaching experience. I think that was the difference in this hiring.
Mike Uva, Watch Fox, Columbia, South Carolina, Mike_Uva on Twitter. You mentioned the story that you wanted to update, an exchange you had about a year ago between President Caslin's son. I think if for folks that may not know what we're discussing here, he was vocal on Twitter not long after his father was hired here. He said some things that were naughty words to Gamecock fans, and he retracted much of that. Explain what happened and explain what the update is that you're referencing.
To basically just sum it up, bottom line is, and if people that have followed me on Twitter, I like to have fun. I like to, I wouldn't say I like to stir the pot. I don't like to swing down, but we have fun. We have fun on Twitter. I don't want to be one of these reporters that has a stick up there, what. So I like to have fun with some stuff. And I can't remember exactly what began it. There was a comment, and I kind of put two and two together. And Jeff Caslin was not too thrilled about that. We went back and forth, took a shot at my integrity, and then I took a shot at some of the comments his family made. And that's the only time, and I'm sure my news director, if you found me telling you this, my news director lets me kind of do whatever I want on social media, which I'm very thankful for, because not a lot of news directors do that. I kind of can say whatever I want, which I'm very grateful for. He brought me into the office. He's like, hey, look, could we just not maybe get him back and forth with family members of the president of USC? And I said, I think that's fair enough to ask. I said, all right, we can do that. So for this past year, I'm just thinking, all right, the Caslins aren't going to, send me a Christmas card anytime soon. They're probably not fans of me if they can even, pick me out from a bucket of paint. But yesterday I got a nice message from Jeff Kaslan. We had a nice conversation, and then I just threw it out there. I said, look, man, I said, I was an ass a year ago. I said, or at least I could have approached it a little bit differently. I'm sorry. He instantly cut me off. He's like, you have no need to apologize. So Kaslan's in the Uvas, we are back together. I don't know if I'm going to be getting a Christmas card next year, but he's a good guy. And I think the bottom line is this, from talking to him, his father really loves this city and really loves this university. And I think, they felt it at times, and I'm not speaking this for Bob Kaslan. I think the family felt at times that, people weren't giving him a shot. And I think, if you talk to some of the Beamers, I'm sure some of them will say the same thing about Shane coming here. They're not going to give him a shot. But I think overall, Kaslan has done a good job, especially two reasons. One, he's come in the middle during a pandemic. And number two, he's replacing a legend in Harris Bastides. So I think he's done a good job in terms of the circumstances. And I think you can use that example and kind of use this now on Shane Beamer. I think some people aren't on that Shane train, but I think they should give him an opportunity to at least prove himself and see what he can do.
Only a couple of minutes left, Mike. Great story, by the way. When I look back at Ray Tanner as the athletics director, Harris Bastides as the president, and Steve Spurrier as the head coach, they had a great camaraderie, and you heard that often. And it wasn't just from them, and still to this day, Frank Martin, Chad Holbrook. I mean, these guys, it was a very unified group of folks. The boss and then the big boss, and they all got along and they were all on the same page. Do you anticipate that being the case moving forward with the Shane Beamer hire?
At the end of the day, it's all about winning. And if South Carolina can get the wins done, I think things are going to be okay. And I think, everyone can sit back and have some pina coladas and just be happy, right? I think the unfortunate part right now is just like in any business, when you're not someone's hire, when you're not someone's guy, and even you can talk about college football, right? Because you have a new head coach coming in here. Some of these players who are talented, he might not necessarily want to play them. Why? Because they're not his guys. It's the same for positional coaches, because that's one of the things that happen with positional coaches when they come in. They want to be able to prove to the head man, hey, look, this is a recruit that I brought in. This is why I'm playing him, because I want to prove to you that I'm good, that I'm doing my job. So I think at some point, you need to be able to win, because if you don't, Bob Kaslan, look, he's a man, of course, that is all business, and he has that football background of playing at Army. He takes pride in talking about the fact that he helped Army turn the ship around when it came to football. There's no question in my mind that he wants to be able to say that same thing here at South Carolina, and not just, football, but just sports across the board. So if winning doesn't happen, who knows what could be next? I still think Ray Tanner, I think he gets too much scrutiny sometimes. I feel like when you think about what he did to be able to keep Don Staley, I think that is something that should not be overlooked. But at the end of the day, if you're not able to win consistently, especially in this part of the region in football, I can't see Kaslan just overlooking that by any means.
Wonderful point there on Don Staley. Folks forget that oftentimes around here. Ray Tanner has kept Don and Frank Martin in place. And there is no Final Four appearance if Ray didn't do what he did a few years ago to hang on to Frank Martin at South Carolina. Finally here, I know that your eyes have been on the current staff. There's a thought, and I've heard some rumors, but not really necessarily prepared to put much of this out until we know it for sure. I do know that T-Rob is no longer the defensive coordinator, and Kyle Krantz has also been relieved of his duties. The rest of the staff, though, still up in the air. Do you have any updates on that, and when do you anticipate some updates? Maybe we'll hear some of that today in the press conference, or no?
Yeah, so what I can tell you is from what I know, and it's not unusual after having multiple conversations with FBS head coaches and FCS coaches from different schools this morning and last night. Right now, having those meetings last night that Shane Beamer had until about 7:15, as like you alluded to. I was outside kind of doing a peeping Tom, looking through the window until they shut those blinds that are see-through. I mean, they got to fire the blind guy over in South Carolina. What I can tell you is a majority of the coaches outside of T-Rob and Kyle Krantz, he told them, hey, sit tight these next couple weeks and we'll kind of go from there. So those guys are still on staff. And the reason I mentioned having those conversations with other head football coaches, and reason it's not unusual, is because the majority of the time the coaches want to be able to have those guys through signing day period. Sometimes that happens in February. In this case, with early signing day period, you have it obviously on December 16th. So being able to have those guys can help a new head coach be able to still keep players in there. People can say that's dirty. People can say that's misleading. But at the end of the day, that's the business. And what we'll see is after that signing day period, that early signing day period, we'll be able to get a better idea in terms of what coaches will be going and what coaches will be staying. But I can tell you right now that if Shane Beamer, Connor Shaw, and Bobby Bentley are the two guys that you have to keep regardless. I don't care in what capacity with Shaw. And another guy, Des Kitchen, I think he's done a tremendous job, and I hope South Carolina retains him as well.
Yeah, I agree with you there. I totally agree. I think Rob Wilson's the name, and I'm going to say this. I will say this. Keep an eye on Mike Peterson. Just keep an eye on that name for a multitude of reasons. Some might be able to guess what those are, but just keep an eye on that. Real quick here from Marty Smith. He tweeted, the good stuff. Gamecock's got a great man. We go back 30 years to our early teens. Shane is a great recruiter who learned under his dad, Fulmer, Spurrier, Kroom, Kirby, Lincoln. He'll get players. That's from Marty Smith. So really good stuff there from one of the best in the business.
Did not know Marty Smith had a tie to him at all.
Well, he does.
There you go.
There you go. Mike, you're one of the best in the business as well. We can't thank you enough for hopping on with us today. It's going to be a busy day for you, clearly, and in about an hour and a half, you'll be on Zoom like the rest of us, covering this press conference here for Shane Beamer, the 36th head football coach of the South Carolina Gamecocks. Thank you so much, my friend. We look forward to getting you back in here very soon, but certainly a very inspiring day for Gamecock football.
I appreciate it, guys. Tomorrow night's my Friday, so I'll go right to Village Idiot as soon as we get off here. So appreciate you guys.
Yeah, you got the Washington football team and the Steelers tonight.
Here we go.
Good stuff. See you, Mike. Thanks, man.
Take care, guys.
Yes, sir. There you go. Time for a timeout. When we return, we'll take the quick trip back to Columbia. That's where Wes Mitchell with Gamecock Central set to join us right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, protected by McFadden Pest Control.
Is your old car really scary? Does it look dreadful or smell awful? Don't be frightened. There's never been a better time to trade in your spooky old car. Stokes Volkswagen just received a new shipment of the VW Atlas and VW Crossport. But here's what makes that even sweeter. Every new Atlas and Crossport is $3,000 off MSRP. Plus, every 2020 Volkswagen is available with 0% financing. That's right. You get both the huge discount and 0% financing. So if you want to play trick or treat at other dealerships, that's okay. Come see us at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or visit stokesvw.com.
Peace and love at Stokes VW.
Plus tax tag includes $399.50 closing fee. Offer subject to lender approval. Expires month end.
Merry Christmas!
Keith Gunther here with McFadden Pest Control, wishing you all a happy holiday season. The only outdoors we want coming inside your home this time of year is the Christmas tree. McFadden Pest Control wants to make sure your family has a safe and enjoyable holiday season. And the best way we know how to do that is to make sure your homes are pest-free. We've been protecting the Low Country for over 40 years. Families trust us. We hope you will too. We're wishing you and your family a Merry Christmas from the entire McFadden Pest Control family. McFaddenPestControl.com.
Family Bingo Night is back. All 3 Dog and Duck locations. Every Monday from 6 to 8 is the perfect time to bring the kids, have dinner, and play bingo. They've upped the prizes with retail store gift cards, gas cards, in-house cash cards, and kid-friendly gift cards like Nintendo, pizza, App Store, and more. Thanks for supporting local businesses like the Dog and Duck in Bell Hall, Park West, and on Clements Ferry Road.
Ladies and gentlemen, here it is. Even the other stations are tuned in too.
JB and Darren on the JB and Goldwater Show.
12:34. Welcome back. Monday, December the 7th, JB and Goldwater Show. Driven by Stokes Volkswagen, live, loud, and online. Download the all-new JB and Goldwater app, jbandgoldwatershow.com as well. That's where you can find us daily, watch, listen for free. The season ticket is available as well. We hope that you'll join us in that if you've not done so already. Thanks to Mike Uva in that last segment there. And now we stick in the beautiful capital city. That's where Wes Mitchell with Gamecock Central. He's got a really busy day. He's been kind enough to join us. They've got Gamecock Central Live coming, or GC Live coming up here shortly, and then right into the press conference. Real quick, Wes, before I get you in, I just got a text here. I'm going to ask you to confirm this if you can. But my contact says that Shane Beamer's deal will be 5 years at $2.75 million per year, ... heavy incentives as well. Can you confirm that, Mr. Mitchell?
I actually cannot. I've heard that floating around. I don't know if that's
okay.
the truth or not. I mean, I would assume it maybe is, but I don't know that for sure. Oh, I really want to know, y'all, speaking of contracts, how much free pizza is Brian giving Thirsty, or is Brian giving our boy Yuva from Village Idiot? Because that's all he ever talks about is Village Idiot pizza.
Nah, I don't know. I mean, but I don't. One day when we look back on Mike Yuva's career in Columbia and look back on Garcia's career in Columbia, I'd be interested to see who got more free beer and pizza at Village Idiot. I know combined they could probably
gaining on him. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Combined, they'd probably put him out of business if he didn't have anybody else in there, right? But they're always packed. So, Wes,
definitely.
I know you've been busy. I know you haven't been sleeping. The first thing I want to do is congratulate you. You and your staff have been on the mark for the last couple of weeks. You've been honest, you've been thorough, and you have held steady with everything that you've said because you knew it to be truthful. I know I sent you a text about it. I think maybe late on Saturday night or something like that. But thank you for your hard work, your diligent work, and your honest work.
Hey, I appreciate that, man. And again, I'll throw all the credit at my colleague there, Chris Clark. I mean, I said it like this: if I've just been trying to be basically the Deshaun Fenwick to our rushing attack. Chris has been the Kevin Harris, the bus leading the way. But he's been great, man. It's been fun. I mean, I've been friends with Chris for a long time, so just to sort of see him and his growth in the industry, and he had the goods, man. He won't sit there and tell you that because that's not his MO to brag about it. But it was very impressive just to watch it from behind the scenes and watch him with what he was able to sort of put out there and the reporting. Like I said, I was trying to help where I could, with my sources and stuff like that. But Chris absolutely nailed it.
Well, I think you nailed it too. So let's just leave it at that. Okay, just accept the dadgum.
There's love to go around for everybody.
Well, I've got to throw a shout out to him.
Okay. I agree.
It was impressive. I feel like
you're exactly right.
Flexed his muscles a little bit.
No, you're exactly right. We love Chris around here. We love Colin. We love all these guys over at Gamecock Central. Certainly, just a wonderful place to be, folks.
Yeah, and Darren, Chris Clark.
I just realized. So what's Colin? You're Deshaun. So what's Colin?
He's the water
Colin
boy.
Is he's still the young buck. He's Rashad Amos.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, he had a nice night on Saturday.
See,
so
if you're going to start
Colin.
referencing who certain people are compared to Gamecocks, you better get it right on Twitter. Darren.
Yes.
Yeah. Oh boy. Yeah. Must be nice to work with people you like, Chris. What's your name? Wes. I'm kidding. All right. So, obviously it's a busy day around here. I want to get first and foremost, I want to get your assessment of Ray Tanner and his handling of this search over the last 3 weeks.
Yeah, I think it's kind of funny. You get this perception of a coaching search based on, what people put on Twitter, and you also have coaches out there who I think want to take their name out of a search, so it looks like maybe they turned it down or something like that when they didn't. I think the search has been very straightforward. I've seen some people got the impression that this was some dramatic, had a bunch of turns, crazy coaching search. I really don't think that was the case at all. I think South Carolina started out with a handful of names. That list, I believe, probably grew a little bit as they were getting tips on maybe who they should talk to. And then you start to narrow the list down. And Tanner, here's the thing. We think we reported on the literal day that Muschamp was let go that they were aiming for like December 6th, December 7th to have a hire. And they literally, news leaked for the hire on late December 5th, right after the final football game had been completed.
Mm-hmm.
And part of the reason that they went ahead and made the move when they did, to get rid of Muschamp, was basically to get started on this thing so that they would already have somebody in place at the end of the year. So I know it's fun still for some people to hate on Tanner, and it's sort of the the common thing right now with a certain portion. And you know what? If you want to sort of bag on the Muschamp hire and say it didn't work out and all that stuff, obviously the hire did not work out. But as far as his actual handling of this and, going out, getting his guy, Beamer has sort of been the guy for a long time here now. And yes, here's the thing, you complete the process. If you have interviews, you go do your interviews. And if you have somebody that's a leader in the clubhouse, so to speak, then you say, hey, who can blow me away? It's not over yet. Who can pass Shane Beamer, basically? So they completed the process. It was on time. It didn't have a lot of drama. There were no sort of contentious negotiations between Tanner and Beamer. It was all very professional. I think, again, if you want to hate on how the Muschamp hire worked out, by all means, that's fair game. It's what does Muschamp always say? It's a results-oriented business. But as far as the handling of this search, I really don't know if you can find much fault other than just the people that think Beamer, was the wrong hire. And if that's your opinion, that's your opinion. But as far as the handling of the search, I think it was pretty spot on.
Who do you, in addition to Shane, the other two finalists, I think we can all safely assume here it was Billy Napier and Scott Satterfield. Would you say that's correct?
Well, I think, again, Chris is going to have a little more coming forward. So let's leave this one off Twitter, but we'll tell it for your listeners. I think Chadwell was maybe a little stronger in there. As you look back, I think Chadwell was in that conversation with those other guys. And I say that his name disappeared a little bit early on as far as being talked about reporting wise. I think that was because it was downplayed on his end because he wanted the focus to be on his team. I don't think he wanted a Napier or Satterfield situation where his name was out there. I think he even maybe played with the semantics of whether he interviewed or just talked with Carolina, whatever. But his name got quiet because he was, I think, very savvy about saying, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. But I really think if it had gotten past Shane Beamer for some reason, I think that name possibly pops back up a little bit stronger. So that's some of my opinion in there. So we'll say it as that. But I don't think he was completely as dead in the water as maybe the impression you would get as the process sort of took place, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting too, because when this hire was announced, it was moments after essentially the BYU victory for Coastal Carolina. So you wonder if that game was played like a week or two ago, if Chadwell was still in the mix kind of behind the scenes, if that could have made a difference.
Yeah, and I think Beamer was just the guy that that South Carolina felt like he was their guy. He felt like it was the fit that they were looking for. And I think even it seems like a portion of the fan base that maybe didn't get it at first. It seems like they've already, just from some of the stuff South Carolina has put on Twitter, that photo of Beamer taking the picture of Williams-Brice from flying over it, the video of him, getting emotional, on the field, thinking about his daughter and doing the Easter egg hunt back in, when he was here before. I think people are starting to get it because and some people will argue it's fine. They'll say, well, that doesn't matter. It's about other things. But the impression I think the impression South Carolina administration got was that this was not just a job for Shane Beamer. This was not just an SEC job for Shane Beamer. Every coach wants an SEC job. So it's easy to be like, oh, I want that job. I want that job. So that got downplayed. Well, who cares if he wants the job? Everybody wants the job. But I think this is a special place to Shane Beamer, and I believe that will come out. We're an hour and 15 minutes away from his intro press conference. I think the people that are on the fence are going to sort of be like, Okay.
Yeah.
I kind of get it. And I think winning the press conference. So when we did our polls, I think it was sort of like 75% of the people were on board for Beamer as it sort of got to that point where it looked like it was going to be him. I get the impression, just my feel is that's probably more like 90% now that people are starting to sort of see what he's all about. We'll see if he knocks the press conference out of the park. Maybe that number goes up to about 95% and everybody sort of gets on board.
Well, the SEC's latest motto, it just means more, applies here with Shane Beamer, because it does just mean more to Shane. And I think what fans are discovering, Wes, is that there is now a coach at South Carolina that loves this school like they do. And as long as fans continue to be able to relate to Shane Beamer, he's going to have so much support, very similar to what Spurrier had. There were, even in 2007 when he lost those 5 in a row, there were many who were calling for Steve Spurrier to be fired and yada yada yada. But that's just few and far between. The large majority of people are like, "Nah, that's Steve Spurrier. He'll get it right," and he did. And I think that Shane will have that as well. I asked you that question about the next two, and then you brought up Jamie, and I think it's a great point. I'm going to add, another name here, Brian Johnson, the offensive coordinator. I think everybody seems to really like this guy. He's probably going to be a head coach somewhere soon. But I'm saying all of that to say this. Ray Tanner essentially had his pick of the litter at the end of the day. I mean, that tells me that the search went quite well. I mean, how many ADs out there go through a process, Wes, and they identify, 5 or 6 guys that they're really fond of. And I think that he from what I understand, made an incredibly strong run at Matt Campbell. Good for him. He's the AD. You should make a strong run at Matt Campbell, make him say no and no and no. But how many ADs out there literally can have 4 or 5 candidates? They go, well, they all bring something a little bit different to the table, but they're all really good. And I can hire any of these guys. I mean, obviously there was a difference in Shane, and that's part of why they hired him. But he had a bunch of qualified guys for this job, and he could have had any of them. I feel like that's fairly rare when it comes to head coaching searches.
It is. And yeah, you want to sort of go for the absolute grand slam and ask around. It makes sense. I think Matt Campbell, with what he's done at Iowa State, probably the hottest young up and coming coach in the country right now. So yeah, do you ask, do you find out, do you get a no? Absolutely. Do you, and we're going into rumor territory here now, but
sure.
Do you make a phone call to an Urban Meyer, or Bob Stoops or somebody like that and just say, hey, is there any interest? At least you get turned down first. But I think of the guys who are like really in this thing, the main targets that sort of emerge where there's mutual interest, I believe wholeheartedly South Carolina could have had any of those guys if they chose to make that move. Because you notice, even though Satterfield pulled his name, even though Napier said he was staying, none of them went as far as to say, I have turned down South Carolina.
Right. Yep. Because they weren't offered the job.
There is an implication there. You use it for the PR. Oh, I'm staying. But they were very careful not to take it to the point of basically saying, oh, I turned it down. So I thought that was telling as well from their side of this thing.
Yeah, well, they weren't offered the job, and they maybe learned from Rich Rodriguez a few years back when he actually wasn't offered the job at South Carolina. Wes Mitchell with Gamecock Central on Twitter at Wes Mitchell GC. So what's first on the agenda? We know that he spoke with the staff last night. We know that T-Rob and Kyle Krantz no longer coaches at the University of South Carolina, and maybe we just spoke with Mike Uva, and he mentioned kind of a holding pattern right now for Benny on staff as to what their futures will look like in Columbia. But Shane tonight is going to head back to Norman and finish out the season with Oklahoma. By the way, the optics of that are wonderful.
I like it.
It's wonderful. I mean, Carolina just had players quit on him in the middle of the season. You're talking about don't quit. He's actually hey, look, I committed to do something. I have to go do this, and then I'll be back soon. But in addition to this current staff, what is first on the agenda for Shane Beamer? What will his next couple of weeks look like?
Yeah, well, so like you said, yesterday was about the team meeting, and I agree wholeheartedly. I I think so. So the team meeting, right? The message was not about X's and O's. It wasn't about scheme. The message was about positivity, about building a culture, about building a place where the players love to be here, where they want to bleed garnet and black. The message was about basically culture and team first and stuff like that. So if you are going to make that your message, the action of, and he told the team, this wasn't a thing where he had the meeting and then it was like, oh, he's going back to Oklahoma. He told the team, I'm going back to Oklahoma to finish out my time there because I made a commitment to those guys.
Wow.
So I think that speaks volumes, because you can't come in and preach culture and team first and family. It just becomes coach speak if you're not going to turn around and sort of have that same commitment to the guys that you probably told the same thing when you were recruiting them. So short term yes, he's going to be splitting duty, but to me, it's a long term, it's a message to the guys that are coming here that I'm going to finish. It's your 2-week notice, right?
Mm-hmm.
You can either quit your job and just get out, or you can give a 2-week notice and finish out your commitment and then go to your next job. And here's the thing, y'all, he can't go visit people in person anyway.
Right.
He can sit on Zoom in Oklahoma just as easy as he can sit on Zoom at the football ops building. So yesterday was about current team, about talking to the staff, stuff like that. I believe today will be more diving into some recruiting stuff, logistics. What's the board look like? Who are the top targets? Stuff like that. That will be sort of a next step of this process, I think. And then they'll go from there, and he'll go back and split duties. By the way, Lincoln Riley, from what I heard, very, very strong ally, proponent, however you want to say it, of Shane to South Carolina administration, as far as giving him a great reference. And I think there's just a lot of respect between Beamer and Lincoln Riley. And I think a part of that is it's all tied into how Shane, I mean, y'all saw the Oklahoma post on Twitter, with Oklahoma congratulating Shane on leaving, and then their fans on Twitter being positive. I was like,
oh,
wow.
Wait a second.
Didn't know that existed. It was almost unbelievable, because generally there's like a little bit of animosity when somebody leaves a place. Even, it's a little bit lessened if it's like they're getting a huge promotion, which obviously Shane is, but also it was kind of like, man, there's like some genuine respect here.
Absolutely. Kirby Smart just spoke on Shane just a little bit ago as well. He said about Shane's future, quote, "You've got to surround yourself with people you trust and that want to be there and have the same goals and aspirations in mind that you do. That may sound simple, but you can get overwhelmed because of the amount of information pouring in and the amount of people that want jobs and want an opportunity to be in the Southeastern Conference. You've got to sort through all that, and you've got to get the right fit. Assembling the staff was the first step, and also making sure the players on your current roster are developing as well." He mentioned assembling the staff. How long do you anticipate before a full staff is assembled?
Yeah, that's so difficult to answer. Because every single one of the guys you're going to be talking to also has a current timeline, with a team as well. Generally, these things it's almost like a slow, like trickle almost. It's like that guy will randomly, oh, that guy's coming on. Then maybe a little bit later on, this guy's coming on. I would say it's virtually impossible to answer timing wise, just because we don't know who they're going to be yet. There's names floating around Twitter. Obviously, there's names floating around all over the place, but it's actually been fairly quiet as far as solid information on who's coming on board, on what direction they're taking. I got a feeling that will start to sort of explode a little bit more in the next week or so. Other coaches will be finishing up their time. He's still a human being. He's got to actually start making these calls and finding out who he's going to bring in. I mean, there's only so much time in the day as well. I think sometimes we think of these coaches as not being actual people.
Right.
They are people. They have to actually make the phone calls and stuff. So I think in the next week, we'll slowly start to get more information. I don't think it's going to be a thing where you're just like, hey, here are the 10 coaches. I think it'll be sort of step by step.
And let's remind folks as well that there are very valuable members of the current staff whom are being considered for future roles. We could speculate, and folks have speculated, but not going to get really deep into that just yet. As Wes just pointed out, still a lot to be sorted through, so we'll see where it goes. Wes, we know that you're about 5 minutes away, I think, from GC Live, you and Chris Clark, so we'll be competing, but don't worry, it's okay. We'll throw people your way, you throw them our way. Whenever you feel like you're bored, just toss them over here, and then we'll do the
We'll
same
trade guests back and forth.
Yeah, they can listen to both of us.
Split screen. They can split screen
easily. You can do it.
What is what do we expect in your program for the next hour leading into the press conference?
I have no idea.
Oh, okay.
I'm gonna be honest, y'all. I got a headache, and we're just gonna get on. I don't have anything written down. We're just gonna get on there and talk about the hire, and there will be no rhyme or reason or plan. We're gonna talk about it, and we're gonna take some questions, and we're just gonna hang out at the lunch table and talk some ball. So
yeah,
I'm sure y'all have a much better plan for the next hour than we do.
We've got Pat DiMarco coming up at the top of the 1 o'clock hour here. He'll save us around.
Okay, there you go.
Your hour is still going to just fly by up until 2, so you'll be fine.
Yeah,
it's very easy to do sports radio right now.
Yep.
It's like sports radio right now is simple. It's the days when there's just nothing to talk. I mean, I'm not gonna lie to y'all. Y'all are probably the same way. They were about mid-season when the fans were just like, I'm done with this. I was like, nobody wants to hear us talk about another blowout loss. So
let's break down the offensive line after loss number 5.
Wes, if you remember correctly, Darren and I launched this company and this program in the middle of April. Coming, right after the pandemic started. Everybody thought we were nuts, but here we are. We're still surviving. I just retweeted the Letterman just sent me a message on Twitter and asked me to send this out. So there's a neat photo from outside of the ops building. Ryan Brewer right there in the middle. Like Corey Miller. You can't tell who everybody is with their masks on anymore. Perry is over there. A bunch of them there in support of Shane Beamer. There's a photo of them talking to Shane as well. So hopefully folks will check that out. Wes, I hope folks check out GC Live. They need to be members and subscribers to Gamecock Central. You've been very valuable in this search and at all times throughout the year. We really appreciate everything that you, Chris, Colin, and the entire team have done for us and for the South Carolina community. It's been just amazing work, and a new head coach is in place. So the next few weeks are going to be a lot of fun in covering this, and we really appreciate it. We look forward to it.
All right. Thanks, guys. You have a good one. Okay. I'll talk to y'all next week.
There you go.
Later.
Wes Mitchell on Twitter at Wes Mitchell GC. All right. It is time for a timeout. Remember, McFadden Pest Control. If the Christmas stuff is out and you've stirred up the hornets and the spiders and all that other stuff that's been, kind of.
Did you notice we have some stuff out now?
Yeah, they look good. Grazing around the garage, finding their homes into the Christmas boxes and stuff like that. McFadden Pest Control. They've been doing it for over 40 years. I can't tell you this enough. I love Heath Gunther. If you're watching and listening, I love you, man. You're the best. Thanks for keeping our house safe. My wife can't stand anything that crawls or creeps around, and they get rid of all of them. So thank you so much. McFaddenPestControl.com. They service my home. They should service your home as well. Pat DiMarco is going to do a great service to this program. When we return, the former Gamecock star and NFL veteran joins us right here on the JB and Goldwater Show, protected by McFadden Pest Control.
Merry Christmas!
Keith Gunther here with McFadden Pest Control, wishing you all a happy holiday season. The only outdoors we want coming inside your home this time of year is the Christmas tree. McFadden Pest Control wants to make sure your family has a safe and enjoyable holiday season. And the best way we know how to do that is to make sure your homes are pest-free. We've been protecting the Low Country for over 40 years. Families trust us. We hope you will too. We're wishing you and your family a Merry Christmas from the entire McFadden Pest Control family. McFaddenPestControl.com.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risked their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
Bourbon and whiskey drinkers of Charleston, Paddock and Whiskey on James Island and the Terrace Shopping Center on Maybank is your home for the finest and rarest bourbon and whiskey drinks in the Lowcountry. This is where I hang out. Go meet my friends Reed and Chris and try one of their exclusive barrel pick bourbons. They have the largest private barrel collection in the state, and let their knowledgeable staff recommend your next pour. PaddockandWhiskey.com. Let not your heart be troubled. Paddock and Whiskey is here for your next double. We're all friends around here. Paddock and Whiskey, proud partners of the JB and Goldwater Show.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Lowcountry. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
Hi, I'm Chris Half, Public Information Officer at the Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum. We're home of the mighty USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, Clamagore, and Vietnam experience. And we're a proud partner of the JB and Goldwater Show. We invite you and your family to come see us and enjoy a day on Charleston Harbor. Visit patriotspoint.org for more information. And now, it is my honor to present the national anthem.
Show. Live, loud, and online.
Not the final hour today. Welcome back, hour 2 of the JB and Goldwater Show. Driven by Stokes Volkswagen, StokesVW.com. Download the all-new JB and Goldwater app. It's free. You should get it. You can watch and listen to us every day by doing so. Also, JBandGoldwaterShow.com. Darren Goldwater, if you're watching us to the right of your screen, I'm to the left, and we're here until 3 p.m. We will air in its entirety the introductory press conference for Shane Beamer coming up in 1 hour, 2 o'clock today. Bob Caslin, Ray Tanner, Shane Beamer, all expected to speak. It will be in its entirety with video here on the JB and Goldwater Show. And if it ends a little early, which I expect it to not go the entire hour, we'll have some post questions, comments, and things like that to get to as well. So thank you so much for being a part of our program once again. Thanks in the first hour to Mike Yuva and Wes Mitchell. And now to Atlanta we go. That's where we find Patrick DiMarco, or I just call him Pat, or PD, or Bud, like, hey, Bud. Hey, dude.
PD's not reserved for Davis?
Oh, yeah, we got 2 PDs. That's all right. We'll go with PD 1 here. I'm sure Patrick Davis will give that up. Pat, of course, a former star at the University of South Carolina, NFL veteran. He's been kind enough to hop back on here and talk about the hire of Shane Beamer. Pat, your first thoughts, or what was going through your head? I think you and I were texting Saturday night after the loss to Kentucky when it got confirmed. What were you thinking? What were you feeling as a guy that you greatly respect is now the new leader of Carolina football?
Oh man, I was fired up. I think I was up till like 2 or 3 in the morning. And then kind of woke up and I was like, wait, we just saw like sources confirm. Let me see what else I can find on this. And I went on the kind of the social media news wormhole to try to find out the truth. And sure enough, we have a new head football coach, and I'm excited for where South Carolina's going. Gamecock Nation should be super pumped. We got a good one.
I know that you and I talked about this. When was Pat last on?
Last week, right?
Was it last week? Oh, hey, man, welcome back.
Jeez. You already forgot about me.
I didn't know.
Gonna have to pay you if you're coming on every week.
I didn't know if it was last week or the week before. It's all running together right now. I know when we had you on last time, you gave a great endorsement of Coach Beamer, but if you could expand on that a little bit and just tell us, I think everybody's seen the video now. We saw Shane in Williams-Brice Stadium yesterday, and the first memory he talked about was an Easter egg hunt that Jerry and Steve used to put on with the staff and their children. And he was talking about his daughter just being 2 years old, running around out there picking up Easter eggs, and he started crying. And that tells you everything you need to know about Shane. Yep. But you personally, you know him quite well. You talked to him often. You played underneath him when he was a coach with the Gamecocks. Who exactly is Shane Beamer?
Oh, he's just a good human being. Loves his family, loves his wife, loves his kids. He's a great dad, great husband, great role model to guys in the football industry, guys in everyday life. He's kind of just a role model who guys can look up to. Guys can I can consider him kind of a mentor of mine from coming into South Carolina, playing on special teams. Like I said, being a 2-star, I was on the bottom of the totem pole. He just always told me, like, Pat, keep going, stay the course, trust me. Like, you're on the right path. And sure enough, the man was right. And no, he's just a good, humble person who is going to do great things for South Carolina.
When you everything you know about Shane and how he is such a family man, how he treats his family, how does that resonate and how he builds a football program?
Oh, I think he's just going to come with the same passion, enthusiasm, and love. Those are 3 things that when I played the game kind of were a part of me and a part of my DNA when I played the game of football. Like, I'm going to come in, I'm going to be excited to come in every week, come in with enthusiasm and open mind to learn, bring energy to the table, love the guy to your left and to your right, and just go in and give it all you got. And I think those are 3 things that Shane's going to bring day in and day out. And those are, in my eyes, those are winning characteristics. Those are characteristics that you can build a team around, build a family around, and do great things.
What does it mean to you knowing that he today at 6:00, he'll fly back to Norman to finish out the season with the Oklahoma Sooners before officially landing in Columbia to start kind of actually getting settled on campus and things like that? What does that tell you about Shane and wanting to finish it out with the Sooners?
I'm not surprised. Just from the person that he is, he's going to see things through all the way to the end. He's going to give it everything he's got. I was scrolling through Twitter the other day and I saw, or maybe it was Instagram, one of the crazy social media sites, but it was basically the University of Oklahoma thanking him for his time there and giving everything he's got, and just basically saying, like, we're proud of you, we're excited for you, which speaks volumes. And I think last time I was on, I told you guys I spoke to guys who played at UGA under him, guys who played at Virginia Tech under him, guys that played at Oklahoma under him, that were all like just fired up for him, excited for him, that he was even considered for the position. And now that he's got it, I've had a couple of those guys reach back out and say, that you guys got a good one. You're in good hands. So it just goes to volumes of the person he is, and kind of the impact he's had on people's lives.
Pat, speaking with Pat DiMarco, former Gamecock and NFL veteran, is 10-year NFL veteran, by the way. Pat, have you had a chance to speak with Shane? Have you at least sent him a text or something over the last couple of days?
Yeah, I shot him a text, and I wasn't expecting much when I sent him a text because, his world's been flipped upside down in the last 48 hours. He's been on more jets than I've ever been on in my life. He's been in a couple different cities. But all great things for him. And I haven't heard back from him yet. I'm sure I will here in the next day or two, but he's, it's time to work. I'm truly believe that he knows that, and he realizes that there's a lot of work to do for the University of South Carolina to get where we need to get to. And I'm sure he's starting to piece things together, get the DNA for the team that he wants. I'm sure he's already going through what coaches he wants, what type of organization, what culture. He's got his hands full, but I know he's going to come in prepared and ready to come out firing.
I know you've talked a lot about what this culture will more than likely be like under Shane Beamer and his leadership, the family atmosphere and things like that, what type of man he is. But what type of football team do you anticipate Shane building in Columbia? I mean, this is an opinion piece here, certainly, because we don't know who his hires are going to be, and we don't know what players are coming in and things like that via recruiting and the transfer portal. But what type of football program do you foresee Shane leading in Columbia with the experience he now has?
Well, I think the first thing that comes to mind is a disciplined football team, a team that's not going to go out there and beat themselves, which, if you want to beat the team across from you, you can't play two teams. You can't play against yourself as well. So I think the first thing they're going to have to do is they're going to be disciplined and know their responsibilities. That one of the biggest things during my time playing football towards the tail end of my career, which was a huge emphasis, was the turnover battle. And you can't win football games if you continually lose the turnover battle. And that's, you get more takeaways than you have turnovers yourself. So I think it's going to be no pre-snap penalties, win the turnover battle, and just develop that grit and toughness up front and win the line of scrimmage. Those are three categories I think that are winning football teams, winning cultures.
Shane, obviously, as we know, has coached under some of the best to ever do this. How much do you feel like he'll lean on those guys, Pat, over the next couple of years? The guys like, I mean, we know he talks to his dad all the time, but, how often do you think he'll pick up the phone and call a Coach Spurrier and ask him for advice?
I'm sure he's a very humble person who realizes that you can't do it all by yourself. So he's going to rely on not only guys like his dad and Coach Spurrier, but also guys like Kirby when they're not playing against each other. Guys like Lincoln Riley, Clips Kingsbury. I mean, he's been under guys that know how to light the scoreboard up. He's also been under guys at Georgia that have had a top 10 defense in the country for years in and years out. So he knows what his team needs to look like. And the good thing is he doesn't have just one blueprint. He has several. He has what they did at Virginia Tech, what we did at South Carolina when he was there, what Georgia looked like, what Oklahoma looked like. I mean, those are completely different teams, organizations. So he can kind of make his own thing out of it and combine all of them together and use all of his sources that he has and those coaches and that leadership to put something together that, I mean, I don't want to say it, but has never been seen before. Teams that can run the RPO, but also get in two back and pound you out if they need to and win in any way they need to.
Was that his goal in doing what he's done in his career, the stops that he's made, the moves that he's made in coaching under these different coaches like Kirby and Lincoln and Sylvester Kroom and Fulmer and Spurrier and his dad? Was that his ultimate goal? Is I'm going to learn from all of the best, and one day I'm going to be set up to go exactly where I want to go?
I can't speak for that from a personal standpoint, but I would believe so, because like his dad was Beamer ball, was getting the best out of what you got. Was when I was in high school, my high school staff went up to Virginia Tech and studied under Frank Beamer for like one weekend a year of strictly special teams. So our punt rushes were like hokey hey one or hokey two or hokey right, hokey left. So like just knowing knowing that from in high school and then going to Shane and playing in the same system where, I mean, we blocked the punt, 2 or 3 times a year consistently. We had a kickoff return for a touchdown or a punt return for a touchdown. So that aspect of it is going to be fun to watch, because if you can create a big play on special teams once a week, once every other week, just if you block a punt or you score a touchdown on special teams, your likelihood of going up, winning is, I think it's like an 85% chance if you score a touchdown on special teams that you're going to win the game. So there's all these analytics and stuff that I don't want to bore you guys with, but but there's a lot of really exciting stuff from being able to score 40, 50 points a game like he did at Oklahoma to being at Georgia and watching our team averaged they probably gave up anywhere from 17 points a game, which is pretty incredible in college football, to being at South Carolina under Coach Spurrier and going from the inside zone run game to the power scheme to two-back drop back. So, I mean, he's seen everything. He's experienced everything. It's going to be fun to see what he takes from all these different experiences and puts to the field.
Do you obviously playing under Coach Spurrier? Do you, in your mind, when you compare these two, if that's fair to do, just as people and as coaches, is there a certain characteristic or two that they both share?
I would say that they both just love ball. From a standpoint of, like, I mean, I in a sense that I love ball too, but I just remember, like, most conversations, whether it be family oriented, whether it be different sports oriented, like, everything reverts back to competition and just going out and giving your best. So I think those two always in some way had a competitive kind of edge to them. And I think that's why both of them were so successful and are going to be successful in the future, is just that competitive edge and just kind of that mentality that, like, no one can beat me. I see that in both of them, and that's something that really excites me.
That's like the Spurrier story when he was 12 years old, playing baseball for his dad, who was also a preacher in East Tennessee. And his dad asked their team, he said, "All right, how many of you kids have been taught it doesn't matter whether you win or lose, as long as you're having fun out here?" And about 6 of the 12 kids on the team raised their hand. He said, "Well, you're all wrong. All that matters is whether you win or not." That's Spurrier for you.
Parenting, man. That's the way to do it.
Pat, obviously, and we'll let you run here, in just a couple of minutes. We do have a fast-moving show today, having to get to the press conference at 2:00. But you have been a part of just an amazing group of players, former players at South Carolina, who won and who care about this university, truly care about it. And this is not just a place that you played. Very similar to Shane, when you step foot on campus, you feel home. What do you think that the role will be in the future of many of the guys that you continue, many of your former teammates and others whom have played before and after you, that want a part in this university? And I'm not saying that in a sense of they want a job on the staff necessarily. I'm just talking about guys that want to be able to help South Carolina in any way they can get to the top of the mountain. What does the future look like for that group who've so strongly endorsed Shane Beamer and whom have been involved in this process behind the scenes?
Well, I think Shane is going to rely on former players a decent amount, in the culture that we brought to Columbia, that we experienced here. That's one area where I think just went astray from Coach Spurrier and on, was just having the former players back and let us show the example of what South Carolina and Columbia should look like for these young guys. Freshmen, sophomores coming in. I know it's a different culture and a different era with social media. I think Facebook was around when I was in college. But it's you don't play for the name on the back of jersey. You play for the name on the front of it. You play for the guy to your left and to your right because you love them. And just that needs to come back. And talking with guys, yesterday I talked with Jasper Brinkley for 45 minutes. Oh. The day before I talked with Cliff Matthews for about 45 minutes or an hour, and just like talking ball, talking life talking life now, like where we're at with wives and kids, and also talking stories about Coach Spurrier and our time at South Carolina. And like I was sitting there and I'm like, dude, you guys want to go back to Columbia? Let's all move back to Columbia. Let's get this thing going again. And everyone's like, let's do it. Are you going to move to Forest Acres? And I'm like, let's not get ahead of ourselves. Let's just be excited for Shane. Let's let Shane do his thing. Let him go in and change the culture and change the dynamic of the game. But if he can rely on some of us guys that have been there, done that, I think it would work out for him and work out for these former players as well. So we can get just that community and that love back. There's playing in the NFL. Like I was locker mates with Shaq Lawson, who was at Clemson for such a long time, and hearing his stories about going back there, and I'm like, wow, like I felt that maybe my first or second year when Spurrier was there, but I missed that the last couple of years. And then talking to guys like AJ McCarron, who was at Bama, and guys like Julio, who's at Bama, who can go and train there and do whatever, and the coaches rely on them for their leadership and mentoring these young guys. So that's an area where these former players can be real assets. Not only mentioned the networking. I mean, only a handful of these guys are going to play in the NFL, but if they can be in front of, or at least have relationships with some of these guys in different industries, it's a brotherhood when it comes to former players. So I think it's an area that can really revamp and get the family culture back at Columbia, South Carolina.
Many of you have your pictures all over that facility up there. It'd be great for some of these players to be able to identify with whom they see when they walk in the building in Columbia, South Carolina. I love the Jasper Cliff, both great guys, great players, but Jasper Brinkley, one night, I'm pretty sure I cried in Athens when he intercepted that ball, and y'all beat Georgia in 2007. Matthew Stafford throws that pick at the end of the game, first win in Athens.
That was my freshman year. That was my holy cow, I'm playing in the SEC, and this is a really big game.
Yeah. I was with Flint. I jumped up. Flint caught me. He didn't drop me either. After all that he'd had to drink, he didn't drop me. It was all good. Speaking of crying, did come on, admit it. Did you get a tear in your eye or not when you saw the video of Beamer in the middle of Williams-Brice?
I didn't get a tear in my eye, but I got chills.
Yeah.
Just I could see his raw emotion. I could see, and also from knowing him, like I wasn't surprised, but I'm getting goosebumps sitting here talking about it right now. It's just the person he is, and like what he's going to bring to that stadium is going to be so incredible. And that was just a little foreshadowing of the emotion and the love that he's going to bring to Williams-Brice Stadium week in and week out.
Can't wait. Pat, thanks so much, man. I know that I'll continue to chat with you here and there. A lot. We've reconnected with an old friend here. It's just a wonderful man with a great family, and we're very happy to have you join us today and give some more insight into the hiring of Shane Beamer. Enjoy the press conference. It's ahead in 38 minutes.
Sounds good. I will. See you guys. Thanks for having me on again.
Thanks, Pat. There you
See
go.
you
Pat
later.
DiMarco, former star at South Carolina, 10-year NFL veteran. Time for a timeout. Another guest. When we return way north to Chicago, that's where we'll find J.C. Shurburtt, owner of thebigspur.com.
Is your old car really scary? Does it look dreadful or smell awful? Don't be frightened. There's never been a better time to trade in your spooky old car. Stokes Volkswagen just received a new shipment of the VW Atlas and VW Crossport. But here's what makes that even sweeter. Every new Atlas and Crossport is $3,000 off MSRP. Plus, every 2020 Volkswagen is available with 0% financing. That's right. You get both the huge discount and 0% financing. So if you want to play trick or treat at other dealerships, that's okay. Come see us at Stokes Volkswagen on Ashley Phosphate or visit stokesvw.com.
Peace and love at Stokes Meet Up.
Plus tax tag includes $399.50 closing fee. Offer subject to lender approval. Expires month end.
Merry Christmas!
Keith Gunther here with McFadden Pest Control, wishing you all a happy holiday season. The only outdoors we want coming inside your home this time of year is the Christmas tree. McFadden Pest Control wants to make sure your family has a safe and enjoyable holiday season. And the best way we know how to do that is to make sure your homes are pest-free. We've been protecting the Lowcountry for over 40 years. Families trust us. We hope you will too. We're wishing you and your family a Merry Christmas from the entire McFadden Pest Control family. McFaddenPestControl.com.
Family Bingo Night is back. All 3 Dog and Duck locations. Every Monday from 6 to 8 is the perfect time to bring the kids, have dinner, and play bingo. They've upped the prizes with retail store gift cards, gas cards, in-house cash cards, and kid-friendly gift cards like Nintendo, pizza, App Store, and more. Thanks for supporting local businesses like the Dog and Duck in Bell Hall, Park West, and on Clements Ferry Road.
Your online radio. The new online radio that makes you happy.
Funny how melody. Wish one day you were sitting on a gate of a truck like a lake. Yes, I love good cold beer and mustard on my fries. I love a good loud honky tonk at Rocks on Friday nights.
And you were listening to the JB and Goldwater Show, live, loud, and online.
R-E-S-P-C-T.
The Chief on a Monday. We'll get him again on Wednesday. JC will double dip with us this week. He's a kind gentleman to do that. But the new Chief in Columbia is Shane Beamer, the now 36th head football coach of the South Carolina Gamecocks and the owner of thebigspur.com, JC Shurburtt. Kind enough to hop on with us for 20 minutes, something like that, and then we'll all take a time out and get ready for the press conference coming up at 2 o'clock, which we will air live in its entirety right here on JB in Goldwater. JC, it is a Monday afternoon to remember. My friend Shane Beamer now being introduced with the Gamecocks.
Yeah, after all that, it ends up with Shane Beamer, and I have a lot of confidence in Shane. I've known him since he was at Carolina before, followed his career, always thought, even when he was an assistant at Carolina, I was working for ESPN.com at the time, and I remember writing an article about young up-and-coming coaches, and I included Shane in that article, and always felt like he would end up somewhere as a head coach, and it's back at South Carolina. I know this is the job that he wanted. He has a lot of passion for the place, loves South Carolina, walking back into a program that maybe, looks a little different now with some of the facilities and upgrades and all that. That's set up, I think, for success. So congratulations to him. I think if you're a Gamecock fan that believes in, finally doing something good for the Gamecocks, finally getting a guy that's a Gamecock, then you're very, very happy with this hire. I think a lot of times this program kind of looks around and goes, well, what's somebody done someplace else and can they do it here? This is a blank slate, and this is a guy that, this is his legacy, at South Carolina starting soon. And so I think there's something to be said about that. I think back to the days, the basketball hire in the mid-'80s when they passed on Bobby Crimmins, who was at App State, to hire Bill Foster, who was a Final Four coach. Nothing wrong with that decision. But, we saw what happened. All the times they could have hired or probably should have wanted to hire Dick Sheridan. That never happened. He was a South Carolina guy. Well, now this is a guy that's, not a South Carolina graduate, a Virginia Tech grad, but this is very clearly the job that he wanted and where he wanted to be. And a lot of people out there beyond the program think it is a really good hire. And we'll see kind of how things unfold here in the next couple of weeks as he puts the staff together and all that.
Really neat video released a few moments ago by Rick Henry, the one of the best dudes out there in Columbia, South Carolina, with WIS, a bunch of former players greeting Shane today at the facility. Can't tell who all of them are. They all got masks on now, but Brewer was there, Mo Brown, Perry Orth, and others. JC, I want to make sure I thank you and congratulate you as well and your team, Tony, John, all of them at the bigspur.com for incredible, truthful work over the last few weeks and always in general, of course. But the last 3 weeks, this search, of course, has been kept very close to the vest, and you guys have just done a brilliant job of getting out quality information, being fair to the process, and leading us to where we are now with Shane Beamer as the next head coach of the Gamecocks. So if you would be so kind to pass that message on to the rest of your staff. I did text John last night, let him know that as well. But great job, my friend.
Yeah, thanks. I felt better as far as the information we were getting about this coaching search than maybe even the last one or some of the basketball searches we've covered, because there hadn't been that many. The Big Spur's been around since 2007, so this is the second coaching search we've covered in 13 years for football, and it's easy to get a lot of misinformation out there. A lot of the national people really didn't know what was going on with the search.
No.
To say the least. Not mentioning any names there, but
I will. It's my show. I can say whatever the hell I want to. Dennis Dodd put his name on it. We all know who it was. That was the worst report I've ever seen in a coaching search. But anyways,
and Dennis is usually like at least in the ballpark. But
is Freeze still the leader?
Wasn't really in the neighborhood.
Wait, JC, hold on. Before you say anything else, can you confirm that Hugh Freeze is not in the running for this job,
or still the leader?
God.
I think the Freeze situation sort of took care of itself. I don't think there was a strong desire on the part of Carolina to hire him, and I don't know that there was a strong desire on the part of Hugh Freeze to come to Carolina. I think that
No.
You know, these things have a way of kind of working themselves out. And that was just, and look, I'm a Hugh Freeze guy. I mean, I don't think he needs to be wearing a scarlet letter around for the rest of his career based on what happened at Ole Miss, which was not good, but he's repentant. I think everybody deserves a second chance, and I love redemption stories. I just never thought it would happen at South Carolina. And so that was that. And, you know, I think that the Billy Napier thing, the interview that happened Saturday, from what I was told, it went well for Billy on his end. And, you know, I want to say something about him. I think he's a heck of a football coach and a guy that will eventually get a job somewhere and do really well. You know, I just think that it was one of those where you talk about fit. And I think Ray Tanner and Bob Caslin both were really interested in fit for the South Carolina job. And Shane Beamer ended up checking the boxes and being the best fit. Now we'll see what he does. But I think clearly, you know, this is a different type of hire than Carolina has made. You know, there was an emphasis on maybe a sitting head coach last time because there needed to be some recruiting and building, and they hired Muschamp and all that. And then before that, there were two legends that they coaxed out of retirement. I don't know that Steve Spurrier was retired. He said he wanted to coach again. Holtz was definitely retired. And so, you know, those things kind of skew expectations at times when you're used to the big name. And this is not a big name. The last name Beamer is a big name, but this is a guy that, you know, South Carolina, I don't want to say he's taking a gamble on, but it's a guy that, you know, it's sort of an out of the box type of hire. And if you look around football these days, a lot of the out of the box hires work, and a lot of the guys like the Jim Harbaughs of the world, which are shockingly struggling. So it's a different kind of time and a different kind of era. And like we said, I'm happy for Shane personally. I know he and his family loved Columbia. They loved coming back. I know it's an emotional time for him, and you know, good things sometimes happen to good people, folks. And I think this is an example, regardless of how you feel about the hire. Good things happen to good people. You have to be at least happy about that.
Absolutely.
Have you sensed, at least on the message board, that some of those who were against a Beamer hire for whatever reason, once they saw that emotional video of him walking around Williams-Brice talking about an Easter egg hunt, did that change the perception of at least a portion of that group?
I don't know. It's hard to tell. I mean, you know, I don't think any hire you would have made, even Hugh Freeze, you know, there were some people on the message boards that were anti-Freeze. And, you know, I don't think any hire you would have made is going to take this fan base and get them 100% behind. They're a very skeptical bunch right now, and rightfully so.
Sure.
After being told for a few years they're going to be pretty good, and then they're not. You know, and believing a little every time they wanted to believe something with Muschamp, that, you know, a good thing would happen, and then the team would fall flat on its face. I mean, I'm sitting here stunned. They've lost 6 games in a row since that Auburn game. I mean, just stunned.
Yeah.
Not that I didn't expect the last 2 or 3, but, you know, I'm stunned they lost to North Carolina last year to open the season. I'm stunned after beating Georgia, you know, playing Florida off its feet. They go to Tennessee and lay an egg. I mean, every time the fan base tried to rally around the program, it was just faceplant city going back to the 2017 Kentucky game at home. So, you know, I understand the skepticism. I do think that video and things like it, you know, him meeting with Letterman today, I think the press conference is going to be big. I absolutely think he'll win the press conference. That doesn't mean much, but I think he will. And I think that, you know, as we move forward, there are going to be assistant coach hires people agree and disagree with. I would caution people about big names. Keep in mind, Will Muschamp hired 2 Rivals.com National Recruiters of the Year, and Lance Thompson and Brian McClendon. And they had a hard time recruiting at South Carolina. You know, so sometimes it's not about the name so much as getting the right guy when you're filling out your staff. And, you know, hopefully he'll do that. You know, hopefully some of the guys that can stay will stay, and we'll sit there and look at the staff here in a couple of weeks and say, man, that's a group that has a chance to go turn this thing around, because it's the worst it's been. I'll remind everybody, since 97 through 99. When the Gamecocks lost 24 of 25 games. I mean, it's gotten that bad. So, you know, you got to hope these are the right people that will reverse that trend in short order.
All right, I want to touch on something with you there, because you great, excellent point. All right, so you bring up a couple National Recruiters of the Year, just couldn't quite get it done at South Carolina, and so I kind of roll that conversation into Shane and what we've all talked about for the last couple of weeks, and that he's a guy that understands this program. He understands this state. He understands the kids in it, the coaches in it. He understands how to recruit to it. So as we look to the future, whether he retains a couple of the guys on this staff or not, to be seen. I think he's going to. We can speculate, but I think he's going to. And then he'll go out and find other guys. So you've covered recruiting forever, your whole career essentially. Talk about that, recruiting guys to South Carolina and how that's a little different, and how having a leader in place like Shane Beamer is able to hire guys who can think and recruit similar to how he knows, to what he knows how to get done here at South Carolina.
Yeah, I mean, I think you have to have a blend. I think you do have to continue to make good evaluations. I think that in the state of South Carolina, there are players every year. You just have to kind of unearth them. And I think I'll say this about Muschamp and his staff. I thought they did a pretty good job of that for a while, with the big exception being wide receiver. When you look and you see guys from South Carolina that were not offered playing as true freshmen elsewhere, and they're in that situation they are at receiver, that was kind of bad. I think, they got kind of burnt on D tackle a little bit because Sorrells couldn't qualify, Green couldn't qualify, and then Belk left after they got him back from Clemson or whatever. It's bizarre. But I think it starts in the state, and I think that you have to be realistic and understand that, you go head to head with Clemson, you're not going to win all those battles, but if you can win some, and then, that next tier of guys in the state that Clemson maybe doesn't want, you got to be the place for them. You got to kind of unearth guys, and then you got to hit the pockets. You got to hit Florida, Georgia, North Carolina, especially. You got to go down into South Florida, I think, and get speed. I think with Shane Beamer's ties to the state of Virginia, that is an area that sends a lot of students to the University of South Carolina. So you should be able to recruit up there a little bit. And then, they've done some good work in Tennessee, picking guys off, also Alabama. So I think he understands that. And I think that, that's going to be a big part of it, recruiting going forward. I'll tell you this, I don't think the roster is in horrible shape. No. I think they need some guys at certain positions to come in and help. But I don't think that this is, maybe when you look across the board, depending on who stays now, because this transfer portal thing is uncharted waters. Okay. And you look at it just today, it's blowing up with players from other schools. So, if you can keep most of these guys intact and then backfill needs, I think you've got a chance. You can have a team that's much more competitive than this one next year. With the right attitude and right mindset. So I think that's a big start, and I think that sometimes it's good to have a guy selling passion and selling the belief. We all want to believe, selling passion and belief that the University of South Carolina can not only, compete for the division again, but, can win championships.
JC, I know we're live on the air here, so this is kind of a difficult question to ask. I don't know how else to ask it, so I just have to ask. John Whittle, as I want to encourage people to be members of the Big Spur, if they're not already, they need to be. Maybe 15 minutes ago, put out a little report about a potential bowl game for South Carolina. Is that something we can discuss for a second?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. All right. I just, what I'm saying. I don't want to take away from what you do, but so John says he spoke with a source today. Mm-hmm. The SEC is strongly encouraging teams to not decline bowl invitations. And apparently the source that John spoke with says that there's a high possibility South Carolina could be in the Gasparilla Bowl. If that's true and they accept the invitation, do you think that Shane would coach that game?
I do not. He's probably the Big 12 championship game, I think, is on the 19th. Unless he just came in and ran the week of bowl practice, but I don't see that happening. He was the interim for Virginia Tech. They played in the Military Bowl, and his dad was sidelined because of health issues, and that was 30 days worth of bowl prep and then a game. And so I think that now let's say, okay, maybe it's not the Gasparilla Bowl, which is December 26th. Maybe it's the Birmingham Bowl, which is January 1. Then I would say maybe, but I think you're going to see Mike Bobo continue. I think that, whoever coaches it, what remains to be seen. I mean, I kind of wondering who's going to call the defense and who's going to play and all that. But I do think that, South Carolina's not in a position to turn down bowls, is what I was told about this. And it's true. You are 2-8, but you go to a bowl and, it's a nice little trip. And if it's the Gasparilla Bowl, it's in Tampa at a stadium that you've had some good moments at over the years, and probably playing an ACC team, and you go take your shot and let the kids get the gift bag, and away you go, But I think that's one of the more interesting things, and it's probably the most 2020 thing ever, is that you're making a coaching change in the middle of a pandemic. You just went 2-8. And now you're going to a bowl. I mean, that's like bizarro world. But I do think Carolina needs to do it. I mean, I think I agree with whoever said you're not in a position to turn down bowls, because you're not. I think it'd be the 24th bowl game in program history.
Yeah, somewhere in there. Yeah.
I don't think that's a bad thing. And I'm pretty sure that, the gift bag for the Gasparilla Bowl will be quite good for the kids. And I guess you get an iPod or some Beats by Dre headphones or something like that. Those kids probably would like it. I hate that it's over Christmas.
Yeah.
Because you're going to have to go down at some point. But,
right.
But we'll see kind of how all that shakes out.
JC Shurburtt, owner of thebigspur.com, 140 here on this Monday afternoon. God bless those, by the way, as we remember Pearl Harbor today, December the 7th, a day that should always be in the minds of Americans. JC, do you have, I got a text earlier, but I haven't really been able to confirm it. Maybe you can, let me make sure I'm looking at this right. The contract for Shane Beamer. Do you have news on that? 5 years, $275. Is that correct?
Yeah, I was able to confirm that earlier today.
Okay.
Heavily incentive laden.
Okay.
So if he wins, he's going to have a little more coin in his pocket. And, kind of like Dabo Sweeney did when he took the Clemson job. I think Dabo was making 1.7 and Brent Venables was making like 1.3, or Chad Morris, one of those guys. And it's kind of that line of thinking. He's like, hey, take some of this money and let's go invest it into the program and invest in the staff and invest into what it takes to win. And look, in the middle of the situation any athletic department's in, those numbers, are tight. It's tighter. Now, probably won't be in a year, but it is right now. And so I don't think money had anything to do with them hiring Beamer, but I do think to kind of make it work with staff and kind of his vision as to what he wants, maybe there was supposed to be a little give and take there. And I think that's an impressive thing for anybody to take coin out of their pocket and put it back into the place that, invest literally into the place that they want to make successful.
JC, is it fair to speculate at all? I don't necessarily think it's let me say something else. I haven't said this yet today, and this is the perfect person to do it with. Guys right now, we've already heard about two who have lost their jobs at South Carolina in Travaris Robinson and Kyle Krantz. I know they make a lot of money. They have families. They're going to have to move those families. It's Christmas time. There are kids who are getting situated in their schools. They're going to have to leave their friends and go find somewhere else to live and things like that. It's not easy to make coaching changes. And Shane Beamer, fresh on the job last night, had to make two very difficult decisions and have two very difficult conversations with really good people. I mean, Travaris Robinson and Kyle Krantz are good people. And so this is hard. So we should always, when a coach loses his job, I know everybody thinks it's a video game. It's not. There are real people and they have real situations going on, and we never know the full story. And so, I hope that everybody lands on their feet and things like that. Is it fair to speculate at all with some of the open positions on this staff, or maybe future open positions? I think we all agree that there are some coaches who probably need to be retained, and we'll see if they are or aren't officially. But can we speculate outside of that at all?
I don't. Everything I've heard from contacts and sources has been, wait and see on that department. I know Krantz and T-Rob were the ones that kind of went public with it. I'm almost sure there may be others, but that have been told, but it just hadn't gotten out there yet. And then there's others that are kind of in limbo at this point. I don't know exactly who Shane Beamer is going to keep. I think there's a good shot for at least two, maybe three on the staff. I've explained, here and elsewhere who I think those should be. So I don't want to get into that right now, but I do think there's still a shot there. And some of those guys, quite frankly, I think it helps Shane. Bobby Bentley, who I've mentioned before, when there's a guy that's spent most of his career in the state, he knows the lay of the land. He can coach receivers, tight ends, running backs, quarterbacks, whatever you want. And when I say all that about the coaches, I'm not necessarily including Connor Shaw. I know Connor Shaw is an on-the-field coach right now, and he could go back off the field or stay on the field. I think Connor Shaw is a given. No matter who had gotten the job, he was going to stay connected with the program in some capacity. So I'm not necessarily including him when I'm speculating. I want people to know that, I think Connor's going to be there regardless.
Mm-hmm. This staff, JC, we've seen oftentimes that some of these, especially some of the more successful programs, gosh, Bama is probably the best example of this, even Clemson now, that what you see on the field from a staff is not indicative of how big and how large the staff actually is. You see all these crazy additional off-field roles, from analytics to game management to this, that, and the other. Is that maybe something that could be in the game plan for Shane Beamer?
Yeah, off the field guy. I think, you have to have that these days, especially the SEC. They've figured it out. That's one thing Nick Saban at Alabama has done a good job of, and so has Dabo. Most of your schools have a significant amount of what they call support staff, right? And that's everybody from your strength coach, your nutritionist, to your off the field recruiting personnel, to your analysts. And it's designed to make the student athletes experience their first class. Even Alabama has some psychological people on staff, things like that, to where you've got 120 guys, but you've got it all covered. You have the people and you've invested in the personnel to make it the experience for the student athlete great. And look, Will Muschamp expanded that, and some coaches, Steve Spurrier, it wasn't necessarily a guy that wanted a big old off the field staff. They were he had his 9-10 guys and they were all together, and a couple of guys off the field, and away we go. But Will Muschamp expanded it, and I expect it to be probably a little larger under Shane Beamer, just because of how modern college football programs are structured these days, and the need to make sure you are meeting the needs of your players 24 hours a day and 7 days a week.
JC Shurburtt, owner of the Big Spur. Probably about 6 or 7 minutes left here with JC, and then we'll have to let him go. We've got to make sure we get to a break before the press conference. JC, your assessment of Coach Ray Tanner and what he's been able to accomplish in this search.
Well, I admire Coach Tanner a lot. He takes a lot of grief. Mike Morgan said it, and I've said it, and you've said it, that I think people sometimes confuse him with like the role of a general manager with a college football team or the pro football team or a pro baseball team. And that's not what an AD does. I think that, in terms of hiring Shane Beamer specifically, look, you have to look at it and say, hey, this guy has no head coaching experience. So it is a bit of a roll of the dice. Again, he's sending the guy from third with 2 strikes again, as the Muschamp hire. Everybody said the Muschamp hire was easy. I completely disagree with that. I thought it was a gamble, because you're gambling on somebody doing something different at your school than they did at a previous stop. So I think it's another gutsy hire by Tanner. I think as far as the process goes this time, there wasn't a lot of misinformation out there. There wasn't a lot of like at the end of the Muschamp search, you saw 4 or 5 guys getting interviewed or confirming they interviewed on the day before Muschamp was announced. And so when you think about it like that, this thing went a little more smooth from the beginning. Billy Napier, Shane Beamer, Scott Satterfield were the guys that were mentioned in connection with this job. I've been hearing their 3 names since last year. And lo and behold, those were the 3 guys that were in it at the end. So I don't think that, unless you were expecting a Spurrier or a Holtz type of hire, which, that's not something another AD could have come in here and done, even though people think that. Then it went exactly how, it should have gone at South Carolina. In my opinion, like I said, last November, I looked at it as who can Carolina get that makes sense. And Billy Napier, Scott Satterfield, and Shane Beamer were the 3 I wrote down. So It's I think that it went just as well as it could have, and landed on Beamer. Now, the actual hire of Beamer himself, like I said, from the outside, people are going to look at it and go, that's gutsy. It's a gutsy hire. And it is first-time head coach, but I do think that as far as the process goes, this was a much smoother process, I think, for Ray than the last one.
Well, I agree. I totally agree. By the way, a really good column has popped up from ESPN about Shane and his father and things like that.
Chris Lowe, I believe.
Of course it was. Chris is one of the best. Let me read this quote from Ray real quick in the release we got last night. I know you got it, JC, but I'm going to read this publicly. President Caslin, Chance Miller, for those who don't know Chance, he's very important in that athletics department now. He's the senior deputy AD. President Caslin, Chance Miller, and I talked to some outstanding candidates for this position. Shane's candidacy set the bar high as we were talking to other coaches. I want to add my appreciation for Chad Chatlos of Turnkey Search, who helped us navigate through this process. Two things that I take out of that. One, Shane might have been the leader all along here at JC. Set the bar high is what Ray said. And then he noted Chad Chatlos and his part of this search. And folks, I continue to hear this. Well, they had a search firm. No, they didn't. They did not have a search firm. They had a consultant who helped mitigate leaks in this and helped do background checks essentially on all of these candidates. So that was, I think, the hiring of Chad Chatlos from Turnkey Search was crucial to keeping a lot of this quiet. That's why I kept saying things like, focus on your local sources. And I know that JC and the Big Spur, they have competition with other local sources, but all these guys were right.
Yes.
They were good. That's why the Dennis Dodd article wasn't even close, because these national dudes couldn't get their hands on anything. They didn't know what the hell was going on. I'll leave the floor to you, JC, though. It appears that Shane from the get-go was kind of the guy to beat, and Chatlos was very instrumental in this.
He had the best interview. And, what we reported was, Napier had the COVID situation. He was still coaching, that kind of thing. Probably didn't have the time, and nothing against him. And he coming into that last interview, the thought was, well, maybe he has a better interview than Shane. Obviously, according to South Carolina, he didn't. And so, yeah, Beamer was the guy that was, there were a lot of reports it was done, and it wasn't, but it was done Saturday. Saturday evening. And that's a good thing. I think that, Beamer had a lot of support for the job. Everybody from players to administrators to former coaches. I think that, he earned it. And sometimes you go into something and it's not so much the resume, but kind of the fit. And I think he was absolutely the best fit for the job.
As we leave this, JC, with you, we'll be off to a break, and then Darren and I have a little introduction for Shane before before this press conference is set to go at 2:00 today. What would be your message? Who knows if they play in a bowl game? The reports out by your colleague John Whittle that is being encouraged if they're invited. The SEC is encouraging all teams in the league to accept that invitation if they get one. So we'll see if they play in a bowl game. But it's going to be a long off season. Obviously, there's going to be a lot of eyes on Shane and his staff and things like that in the near future. Still have to work through a pandemic. Going to probably have to work through it in spring practice as well. And then look ahead to the 2021 football season. There's a lot to unpack here before next September rolls around. What would be your message to Gamecock fans, the Gamecock faithful, if you want to call it Gamecock Nation, that's fine. But over the next few months about the future of this program under Shane's leadership?
We coming. No, I'm just kidding. That Orgeron press conference popped in my head. We coming. I think, you hired a guy that's a self-starter. I know his last name's Beamer, but, reading through this ESPN column, Frank says he's never asked me to make one call for him. He did it on his own, and he did. And Shane's always been a guy that's done that. Could have been easy for him to stay at Virginia Tech like a Jay Paterno did at Penn State. Who's wanting to hire Jay Paterno now? And stay there with his dad and just work it out. But he didn't. He's a lot like the Bowden kids, in terms of a guy that's made his own path, probably much more so than those two. And so I think that's a good thing. I think you need a guy that's a self-starter for this job. Not that Will Muschamp was not, because he certainly was. But I think that this is a guy that's going to put the work in and that can kind of think creatively in terms of how to get this thing turned back around, because it is, record-wise, at least right now, in pretty bad shape. And so, I would just encourage everybody to hold on to your hats. With the transfer rule too, there's going to be a lot of talk about the roster. You got a recruiting period coming up in January, and then the transfer thing. I mean, it's going to get really interesting. Probably won't have everything finalized roster-wise till May, to be honest. So I would say hold on to your hats. There's going to be a lot of news, good, some bad, some a lot good though, hopefully. And so we'll see kind of how it goes.
And Kevin Harris returns in 2021. So that's always something to look forward to.
Pretty good player, that Kevin Harris, right?
I mean, he is
Hey,
fascinating.
I'd like to see them play the Bolt, because he could get to 1,500 rushing yards if they go to old Kevin Harris. They beat Navy. Because I still can't think about. Could you imagine that kid at Navy? Good Lord. Good Lord.
Good Lord. JC, we will let you run on that note. Folks, thebigspur.com. Certainly need to be a subscriber there. They have done masterful work, as I've already referenced a couple of their reports today on our program. Thank you once again for your commitment to what we do, and your commitment to the Gamecocks with thebigspur.com. You just do a great job. You really do. I think I know what we'll probably talk about on Wednesday. So we'll see you in about 48 hours. All right.
Penn State beat Rutgers. That's what we're talking about.
Oh, yeah. There you go. Yeah, right. See you.
All right, we'll see you guys
there
later.
You go. JC Shurburtt, thebigspur.com. Quick timeout. And when we return live to Columbia, Shane Beamer being introduced as the next head coach of the South Carolina Gamecocks.
Merry Christmas!
Keith Gunther here with McFadden Pest Control, wishing you all a happy holiday season. The only outdoors we want coming inside your home this time of year is the Christmas tree. McFadden Pest Control wants to make sure your family has a safe and enjoyable holiday season. And the best way we know how to do that is to make sure your homes are pest-free. We've been protecting the Low Country for over 40 years. Families trust us. We hope you will too. We're wishing you and your family a Merry Christmas from the entire McFadden Pest Control family. McFaddenPestControl.com.
At Patriots Point Naval and Maritime Museum, families walk in the footsteps of our nation's heroes, the brave ones who risked their lives to defend our way of life. Home to the aircraft carrier USS Yorktown, USS Laffey, and the USS Clamagore, there's more than 1 million square feet of exhibit space to roam. White Glove certified, we have several new health safety measures in place to enhance the visitor experience. Come for the day and leave feeling inspired. One of the most impressive museums in the country, located right here in Mount Pleasant. Visit patriotspoint.org for more. We'll see you soon.
Bourbon and whiskey drinkers of Charleston, Paddock and Whiskey on James Island and the Terrace Shopping Center on Maybank is your home for the finest and rarest bourbon and whiskey drinks in the Low Country. This is where I hang out. Go meet my friends Reed and Chris and try one of their exclusive barrel pick bourbons. They have the largest private barrel collection in the state, and let their knowledgeable staff recommend your next pour. PaddockandWhiskey.com. Let not your heart be troubled. Paddock and Whiskey is here for your next double. We're all friends around here. Paddock and Whiskey, proud partners of the JB and Goldwater Show.
This is Scott Glaze, head golf professional at the Links at Stono Ferry, located on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina. I'm inviting you to tee it up on one of the most scenic and challenging courses in the Low Country. Our back nine is highlighted with 3 holes that border the Intercoastal Waterway. Visit stonoferrygolf.com to book tee times and discover all that Stono Ferry has to offer. The Links at Stono Ferry is a former South Carolina Golf Course of the Year and is also home to the College of Charleston men's and women's golf teams. Come see us. We would love to have you. stonoferrygolf.com.
In Columbia, South Carolina, they've made it official. Shane Beamer is going to be the new head coach of the South Carolina Gamecocks.
USC is expected to hire Oklahoma assistant head coach Shane Beamer.
As Shane Beamer, the Shane train will be parking in Columbia.
Shane Beamer will be the next head coach for the South Carolina Gamecocks.
The Gamecocks hired Shane Beamer to be their next head coach.
Shane Beamer, the guy behind me, is going to be the new man in charge.
Shane he's got the Carolina blood.
Do you think this job would be Shane's dream job?
Absolutely, 100%. And
he's voiced that to me. Everybody saw the interview that Connor gave, and when he said, I got this on my chest, and this is where I want to be. This is who I am. I built a home here, and the whole deal. I think that Coach Beamer is the same way. He wants to be back here, and he still has an 843 number. So living in Oklahoma, it's kind of wild.
All the pain of yesterday, I know my kingdom awaits, and they're forgiven my mistakes. I'm coming home, tell the world I'm coming.
2:00, final hour of the JB and Goldwater Show. Welcome back. Thank you for watching and listening to our program today. Our special, Shane Beamer, being introduced as the next head football coach of the South Carolina Gamecocks. Thus far, thanks to J.C. Shurburtt, Wes Mitchell, Pat DiMarco, and Mike Uva for all joining us here on our program as we get you prepared for the live press conference here just moments away. And Darren will cue us as to when we're going to head to Columbia, South Carolina. If you're watching our program, you will be able to watch it right here. You don't have to go anywhere else. We will have it in its entirety. All three, Bob Caslin, Ray Tanner, and Shane Beamer, speaking with the media today. No, Darren and I won't be asking any questions. We're going to sit back and watch this one. Our questions will come in the form of an interview with Shane at some point in time in the future, whenever we can get him back from Oklahoma. But overall, Darren, real quick before we go to Columbia for the man of the hour here. All four today, I think, have brought really good perspective of the state of the program, the future of the program, and their new head coach.
Yeah.
All four guests.
I mean, you talk about Mike Uva from his perspective and where he's been kind of on the ground floor of, as best he can, breaking a lot of news. And he was the one who was first to have the fact that Muschamp was gone. So he's been right in the midst of all of it. Our buddies at Gamecock Central and the Big Spur, we're tight with both of them. And all along, it's been a pretty consistent message, as you've pointed out, from the local guys. Trust your local guys is something Jamie has said for 2 weeks now. And I certainly include Gamecock Central and the Big Spur as part of the local guys here.
David Cloninger,
of course, Cloninger, Josh Kendall over at the Athletic as well. I mean, the local guys have all been pretty much in lockstep. This has been a 2-man, almost 3-man race from the beginning, and it looks as though we're about to start this press conference, so we can head over now to Bob Cass.
Steve Fink at the podium.
Yes.
He'll set us forth.
But
Shane Beamer.
We will
next
hear
head
from
coach
University President Bob Caslin, Athletics Director Ray Tanner, and of course, Coach Beamer. After each makes an opening statement, we'll open up for questions. Please use the raise hand function, and we'll get to you as soon as we can. Please mute your microphone when you aren't speaking. With that, I'd like to turn it over to the University of South Carolina President Bob Caslin.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. Hey, let me tell you how excited I am to be here. Good afternoon. Welcome, everybody. We're so glad that you're here. I could not be more excited for today. Today is not only a day of great excitement, today is a day of great promise. We are so excited to welcome our next football coach, Coach Shane Beamer. We're also really excited to welcome his wife, Emily, his children, Sutton, Olivia, and Hunter. And I know they are going to be here as soon as they can. So, Coach, I can't tell you right now how excited we are that you are now part of the Gamecock family once again. First, I would just say that how important that the year and a half that I've been here, that I have seen the importance of athletics to our university. It is so important to our fan base. It's so important to our alumni. It's so important to our students, our staff and faculty. It's really kind of woven into the culture of this entire university. Our fan base could not be more passionate, and they could not be more excited about what it takes to have athletics here on the university and to have a winning program. America loves a winner, and America wants to be around a winner, and they want to win, and they want to win with excellence, and they want to win the right way. And I'm absolutely convinced that as we went through this entire selection process, that Shane Beamer is that coach. Coach Beamer has been mentored by the best. He has a wealth of experience. He knows the Southeast Conference. He knows the state of South Carolina and our neighboring states. He knows the recruiting activities that are going on in the Southeast Conference and in this particular state. And he's got the competence. And most important, I am absolutely convinced he has the character that will bring this program to a championship level. When I talk about and think about Shane's character, the first thing that comes to mind is trust. And I was anxious to hear the great words that he had when he was talking to the team yesterday about trust and how trust is so tremendously important and it has to be earned, and that he wanted the opportunity to earn it. And when you talk about character, you talk about a culture that defines that character and the values that are part of that particular culture. Values of integrity, values of selflessness, laying it on the line for each other, values of excellence, and building that culture that no matter what, I will never want to let this team down. It's pretty clear that we all want a championship program here at the University of South Carolina. And I'll tell you, I am absolutely convinced, and I am more confident than I have ever been, that Coach Shane Beamer is the one that will get us there. So we are excited for today in a very special way. I could not be more excited as the president of the University of South Carolina. Coach Shane Beamer, welcome. We're so glad that you're here. We're not going to bring you up just yet. I want to now bring up a partner that has worked so tirelessly in this effort to bring on Coach Shane Beamer, and that's our credible athletic director, Ray Tanner. So, Ray, welcome.
Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. We're grateful that you could participate. I want to begin by recognizing our president again, President Caslen, for embracing this process that we have gone through. He was with us every step of the way. He never missed an opportunity to visit with a coach that I visited with, and I'm very grateful that he took the time out of a schedule that you can, it's hard to believe the amount of things that he does in a particular day, but so I'm grateful for the time that you spent and the passion that you embraced this search. I'd also like to recognize our Senior Deputy Athletics Director, Chance Miller, who has also been with us every step of the way. He's done a wonderful job. He's an IT expert. He's a lawyer. He's a little bit of everything, but he's been a valuable asset as we've gone through this process. Also, Chad Chatlos. He's a managing director now of Turnkey Search. He was with us as we went through this process. I'm grateful for all the insight and the valuable information that he provided. I only had one rule for Chad when we engaged, is that every time I call, you answer on the first ring. He didn't do that every single time, and I'm going to have to hold that against him as we move forward. But also our Board of Trustees that supported our chair, Dr. Dorn Smith, that supported our process. They were not directly involved. It was just the people that I had mentioned, but they supported our process as we navigated to the day that we're here right now. So I'm grateful. I'm grateful for those people and the amount of time and energy that they expended to get us to today to have an opportunity to introduce Coach Shane Beamer. I tell you, it just seems like yesterday that Coach Beamer was here on campus. It's been 10 years, and he made an impact while he was here as a coach, as a person, as a relational builder from his players, former players. He stayed in touch with many people here in our city and our campus community. He was widely respected. He's been to so many different places and done so many things. And I looked at his resume a little bit, and I asked him, I was looking at his coaching career, and I said, it appears to me that you started coaching just out of college. And he said that is correct. I proceeded to ask him, what happened to your NFL career? He said it was rather short. He said, I tried out, and they asked me, was I serious about trying out? So I thought that was good. But it's always good to get in the coaching ranks so early. He's been to a lot of different places. But I'll tell you this, in 21 seasons, he's participated in 17 bowl games. Out of the time he's been assistant head coach, associate head coach, position coaches, He has been very successful, a part of some programs that have achieved at a very, very high level. He played in a national championship game, and he coached in a national championship game. Of the 21 seasons that I mentioned that he was a coach at all Power 5 schools, that there was only 3 of those teams that had a losing record. So I know that as a person, Coach Caslen has referred to the outstanding characteristics with integrity, with passion, the enthusiasm, with everything that he stands for, what he represents, the affinity that he has for this school. And he's been away for quite a while, but he has a tremendous desire to be here. And it has not just started when I made the phone call to him about becoming a candidate in this search process. It has been evident for a long time. I appreciated his experience and what he's been through, the preparation. For a long time, he's been preparing to become a head coach. You look at his journey and where he's been and what he's done. And now he's assistant head coach at Oklahoma as they enter into a picture of playing for a Big 12 championship and what he's been able to do. I would also note that with 3 coaches that he's been with, when you talk about Kirby Smart, you talk about Lincoln Riley, you talk about Sylvester Croom at Mississippi State. All those 3 coaches were either first or second year coaches. So he knows what it's like to be in a situation where somebody hasn't been a head coach, but they have become one. That came up on a couple of different questions that you have here and there. I'm the least bit concerned. He's prepared for this day to become our head coach and to lead us to heights that we all aspire to be a part of. I know our fan base is excited. I did engage with our former players, the Lettermen. They were tremendously excited. We had a couple of Zoom calls. A number of them showed up here this morning outside the building. This is a COVID-free building, so we couldn't let them in. But Coach Beamer went outside. He went outside to have a visit with them, and I thought that was a tremendous gesture on their part. And I will tell you, as Coach Caslen did, I call him Coach because he's a former player, and he coached a little bit in college football. So we're excited to have Sutton and Olivia here with us, as well as Hunter and his wife, Emily. Sutton and Olivia were both born here in Columbia, so they're really coming back. They're really coming back to where their roots are. But for so many reasons, I feel very strongly that we found the man to lead our football program. Last night, as he was visiting with the team and their attentiveness and his remarks, they embraced, they were engaged. And I think they're excited about moving forward with a man that cares deeply about them and about the success that they're going to have an opportunity to enjoy. So without further comment, it gives me tremendous pleasure to introduce the head football coach at the University of South Carolina, Coach Shane Beamer. Thank you. I'll wipe you down.
Thank you, Coach Tanner. Thank you, President Caslen. It's an absolute honor to be the head football coach here at the University of South Carolina. Today is an absolute dream come true, not just to be a head football coach in the Southeastern Conference, but to be the head coach at the University of South Carolina. In my dreams, I wasn't staring at a screen of reporters on Zoom, and we had a big room with my family and so many people in here, so that's a little bit different, but it certainly doesn't take away the excitement of being here in this position. I want to thank President Caslen, Ray Tanner, and Chance Miller for their belief and their faith in me. The interview process was very, very thorough, but I really, really enjoyed connecting with those guys. I told my wife the first time that Coach Tanner and Chance and I talked on the phone, I came home and I just told her, I said, there's something different about those guys, their vision, the way that we connected, the amount of time that we spent together on that phone call, the initial phone call, and then the interview was pretty special. And then having a chance to visit with President Caslen during the interview process as well. The fact that he's a huge football guy, played the game of football, is exciting for me. We are certainly aligned here, and it all starts with those guys at the top. I want to thank Coach Will Muschamp and the contributions he made to this program. Certainly a class individual and somebody that I have a lot of respect for that advanced this program and tried to do it for the right reasons. So I want to thank him for what he did for the University of South Carolina as well. To the former players here at Carolina, Coach Tanner mentioned that I had an opportunity to visit with a group of them this morning. I'm so appreciative for those guys coming by, being able to see old faces, guys I coached like Mo Brown, guys that I coached against, like Ryan Brewer, Perry Orr, so many former players that came by to take the time to do that this morning was very, very special to me, and I'm thankful for that. So I've heard from so many of them the last couple of weeks, and I told my wife when this process was going on that I didn't know how this thing was going to finish, but regardless of what happened, I would have been crushed if this thing didn't happen. But I told her just the amount of former players that I heard from during this time that reached out to me, or that I found out reached out to Coach Tanner and our administration to recommend me and jump on the table for me, was extremely, extremely humbling. It reaffirmed why I coach. Obviously, Saturdays are important. Wins and losses are what you're judged on, but the opportunity to have an impact on a young man's life and to have a guy like a Marcus Lattimore call me out of the blue and tell me stories of things that I barely remember that he talked about, conversations we had. A guy like a Connor Shaw driving home from work 2 weeks ago, and to have Melvin Ingram and Akeem Auguste FaceTime me just to catch up. Patrick DiMarco, Torrey Gurley, I can go on and on and on. Alshon Jeffrey, Stephon Gilmore. I've heard from so many of them over the last couple of weeks, and thank you. Thank you. This is your program. I'm honored to be your head football coach, but this is your program, and you guys laid the groundwork. You are always welcome here, and thank you for allowing me the opportunity to be here. I've been blessed to be able to work for some great head coaches over my career. I've learned so much from all of them and taken a little bit from all of them as well. Starting with George O'Leary, who gave me an opportunity, my first coaching job back in 2000, right after college, when Coach Tanner told you that story. I did. It's a true story. I tried out went to our pro day at Virginia Tech, and I had one pro scout come up to me and say, "You're not serious about this, are you?" And then I had a second one come up to me and said, "What are your plans for next season?" Which obviously coaching or playing pro football wasn't one of them. So I got into coaching pretty quickly. I had an opportunity to work for Coach O'Leary at Georgia Tech. Philip Fulmer hired me and gave me an opportunity to get into the SEC at the University of Tennessee. Sylvester Croom, someone that other than my own family has had more of an impact on me than anyone in this world. A guy that was the first African-American head football coach in the Southeastern Conference and hired me at the age of 26 to come to Starkville, Mississippi and work on his staff for him is something that I'm still trying to repay to him all these years later. Seeing how he handled his program and the way that he built that program at Mississippi State, so thankful for that opportunity. To Steve Spurrier, who gave me an opportunity here in Columbia. If he hadn't hired me back in 2007, probably wouldn't be standing here today. But to be able to come back here with Coach Spurrier and work for him and learn from him and win a lot of football games, thank you, Coach, for that opportunity. To my dad, Frank Beamer, the former head coach at Virginia Tech. It was such a thrill for me. It was hard to leave here, but such a thrill for me to leave South Carolina and go work for my dad at Virginia Tech for 5 years. Thank you for the lessons I learned from you. To Kirby Smart, who hired me at Georgia on his first staff in Athens, a guy that I have immense amount of respect for. I consider a close personal friend and someone that certainly made me a better football coach in my 2 years with him in Athens. And then finally to Lincoln Riley. My family and I loved living in Athens, Georgia. Had a great time. We were winning football games. But when the 10th assistant coach rule came into effect in college football, Lincoln Riley reached out to me. And there's not a program in all of college football that I would have left to go be an assistant coach at other than the University of Oklahoma. And that was because of Lincoln Riley. I felt like I'd done a lot in my career. I had a lot of different roles, but the opportunity to go to learn from Lincoln and learn the offensive system at Oklahoma and how we do things for my family and I to get out of our comfort zone a little bit was an opportunity I didn't feel like I could pass up. And I've grown so much as a coach in the 3 years out there at Oklahoma. Not only have I learned a lot from a football standpoint, I gained a very personal, close personal friend. He and his wife, Caitlin, are phenomenal people. He's been a huge help to me throughout this process, answering questions, willing to work with me throughout this process and helping me learn how to be a head coach by watching him each and every day. And then the president, Joe Harris, the president at the University of Oklahoma, and Joe Castiglione, the athletic director at Oklahoma. Thank you for the time that you've spent with me. I've had multiple lunches with Joe Castiglione where he's allowed me to pick his brain and ask questions. And he's considered one of the finest athletic directors in the country, and to be able to learn from him has been really, really special. I want to thank the Oklahoma players. I wouldn't be here in this position without you guys. I've got 600 plus text messages on my cell phone right now from people congratulating me, wanting to come here and coach, different things. But so many of those text messages are from players at Oklahoma that have reached out to me and are excited for me. And thank you guys. I developed close personal relationships with the players that I coach. And as excited as I am about leaving or about coming to South Carolina, the opportunity, but the having to leave those guys is extremely tough and difficult, but appreciate you guys and all you're about. And then finally, my family, my in-laws, Steve and Sandra Gladney back in Starkville, Mississippi. They are SEC through and through, and the fact that their son-in-law is live on SEC Network is probably the proudest day of their lives, certainly in our marriage, I'm sure. I hear them talk regularly about Paul Feinbaum and the SEC at football and this and that, and two great people, and I'm fortunate that they allowed me to come to Starkville, Mississippi and marry their daughter. To my parents in Blacksburg, Virginia, Frank and Cheryl Beamer, thank you for all you've taught me, the son that you raised me to be, and your constant support. For 21 years in coaching, I can always count on Thursday nights getting a phone call from my parents wishing me luck in that game on Saturday, my dad wanting to know what the game plan is and what we're thinking. And I can count on every single game, regardless of when that game ends, whether it be after midnight or early in the afternoon, within 5 minutes of that game being over, I can always count on a cell phone call from my mom, leaving me a voicemail, either congratulating us on our win or telling us tough loss and get ready to bounce back next week. My sister, Casey, Prater, lives in Charlotte, which I'm excited about getting back closer to her. Thank you for your constant support and being the best sister in the entire world. And then to my family back in Norman. My wife is born and raised in Starkville, Mississippi. And I took a job there in 2004. We got married. And within our first year of marriage, I came to her and I said, we're moving to Columbia, South Carolina. We have this opportunity. So we drove over to Columbia to look around. Coach Spurrier had already offered me the job. Wanted to make sure it was right for all of us. We didn't know anything about Columbia. I drove through here some in the summertime, and beyond that, I hadn't spent much time in Columbia. We spent the night, our first night in Columbia, a hotel off Bush River Road. That's all I knew about was a Bush River Road. And at that time, drove around the next day looking for a house. And little did we know that those 4 years would lead to 4 of the greatest years of our life, living here, the friendships that we made in our entire life. One thing my dad taught me in December of 1986, he became the head football coach at Virginia Tech. And he got up in his opening press conference and he thanked so many people, his brothers, his sisters, his parents, former coaches, just like I just did. And he forgot to introduce my mom, his wife. And I've always remembered that as I've been preparing for this day to make sure that I don't forget to introduce, or in this case, thank my wife. So leaving here 10 years ago was extremely difficult. I told my wife, I'll never forget having this conversation, that if we ever wanted to be the head football coach at Virginia Tech, or excuse me, if I ever wanted to be the head football coach at South Carolina, I felt like we needed to leave to go to Virginia Tech at that time and then ultimately come back. And I don't know if she believed me or not, but she went along, and we've worked for 10 years to get back to this place, this special place. And baby, we did it. We're back. But the dream doesn't end there. We're just getting started. But so thankful that you're my best friend, my partner throughout this. I'm sad you're not here today, but I can't wait to see you back in Norman. And then to my 3 children, Sutton, Olivia, and Hunter. You guys are going to be seeing a lot of them. They're going to be completely invested into this athletics program. We're going to be at every sporting event you can think of. We're going to be supporting Coach Staley, Coach Martin, all the different sports here at Carolina. We're excited about that. I was telling Coach Tanner in my interview process, my son, he's 7, for the last 2 weeks, that he knew about this opportunity. He knew about Carolina. Every single night when I came home, they would text me, "See, are you close to home?" I say, "I'm about 5 minutes away." And lo and behold, every single night when I walked in the house, Sandstorm would be blaring in our kitchen, and my 7-year-old would be waving his T-shirt above his head. So no pressure at all on that one. But it was pretty cool to see when this thing came to fruition late Saturday night. I've still got some old Carolina clothes that I had from my time here. My kids put those on. They're excited about it and can't wait to get them over here. Like I said, we're just getting started. I've had opportunities in my career to be a head football coach, but I've been in some great places along with some great coaches. And I wasn't going to leave just to go check a box to say that I was a head coach. It would have had to have been really, really special. The places that I've worked, the coaches that I've worked for made that really, really hard to ever leave. But this is a dream job for me because you have everything in place to win here at the University of South Carolina. A state that I was born in, that I'm so proud to be a native of the state of South Carolina. An amazing elite university here with unbelievable academics and great leadership, a growing state and a growing city that I'm excited about raising our family in this amazing city of Columbia, South Carolina. The facilities here, so much has changed in the 10 years since I left, but the facilities here are second to none. I've coached at a lot of different places. I've visited a lot of different schools, and the infrastructure that we have here from a facility standpoint, this building, Williams-Brice Stadium, everything that's continuing to grow, it's exciting to have those resources to be able to recruit here. The amazing fan base at the University of South Carolina. One of my earliest memories, my dad was the head coach at Murray State out in Murray, Kentucky, FCS program. He took the head coaching job at Virginia Tech in 1987. And one of my first memories to big-time college football was coming down here to a game at Williams-Brice and seeing Todd Ellis, who I so appreciate being here today, quarterback at the University of South Carolina, seeing Sterling Sharp out there, all the great players that he played against. Obviously, it didn't go well for Virginia Tech, but I just remember being blown away by the fan base, the size of Williams-Brice Stadium, just something about the Williams-Brice Stadium and the electricity in the air in those times down here, and it's always resonated with me. This is a job my dad spent time coaching in Charleston, South Carolina at the Citadel, and one thing that he always talked about during his entire career was how much he would love if the opportunity ever presented itself to be the head football coach at South Carolina himself. I still remember, God bless him, but I still remember Mike McGee coming to Blacksburg, Virginia, and sitting in our kitchen and interviewing my dad at one time about being the head coach at South Carolina. So that opportunity never transpired with him, but the fact that I'm standing here today is really, really cool, and things have certainly come full circle. But I remember those initial games in Williams-Brice Stadium. I've been in here as a coach for Carolina, and I've been in here multiple times in Williams-Brice Stadium as an opposing coach. And the atmosphere, the electricity, the passion of the crowd in Williams-Brice Stadium is second to none. And I am so excited about getting back out there, running out to 2001, listening to Sandstorm and all the different amazing traditions that we have here at Carolina with the greatest fan base in the nation is something that I'm really, really excited about. Excited about being a part of a program that has such a high expectation level of success throughout all sports. It's a top 25 athletics program with great leadership, like I talked about, that's won multiple national championships in a lot of different sports, and really looking forward to learning from the other coaches here at this great university and picking their brain on what makes them successful, and then supporting this athletics program with my entire family. You have, when I talk about the resources to be successful, you certainly have that with the high school programs and a recruiting base here in this state. It's always going to start with the state of South Carolina. I understand how important the high school coaches are in this state. The guy, my head high school football coach, Dave Christ at Blacksburg High School in Blacksburg, Virginia, the lessons he taught me as a young teenager in Blacksburg still resonate with me to this day, and the impact that the high school coaches have on players is strong. This isn't me reconnecting with any high school program, wherever I've been, since I left Carolina, whether it be Virginia Tech, whether it be Georgia, whether it be Oklahoma. I've always recruited this area, and I've always recruited this region. So it's really cool to have heard from so many high school coaches since this was announced that I'm looking forward to reconnecting with, and if you want to phrase it that way, and getting back in those high schools. This is a program that you're always going to be welcome at. I'm looking forward to visiting with you in your school. And once the age of this era of COVID is hopefully over soon, being able to get you guys in our building and having a chance to visit with you. I know some of you have questions about my time frame. I know it's been reported that I'm going to go back to Oklahoma and finish the season with those guys. And that's very important to me. Like I said, I have deep relationships with those players at Oklahoma, and I want to be loyal to those guys as well. And I don't want to sweep the rug out from under them and leave them high and dry with 2 weeks left in our regular season with another opportunity to win a Big 12 championship. I didn't think that was the right thing to do. I talked to the players on our team yesterday about trust, about communication, about loyalty, and I didn't think it was fair to me to have that conversation with those guys and then leave these guys high and dry out in Oklahoma. So I'm going to do two jobs here for a couple more weeks. It's a little bit easier to do in today's time because we're not able to get out on the road recruiting. It's obviously everything is shut down. So everything that we need to do from a recruiting standpoint, I can do from our phone. And that's what I will continue to do and finish out the season with those guys, and then look forward to getting back here as soon as possible here in less than 2 weeks back here into Columbia, and that was very well received by the players on our team yesterday. And when I told them that, I could tell the reaction was positive, and certainly that's what I want to do. So we're going to have a lot of fun building what I want to be the premier culture in all of college football. That starts with investing in the relationships with these players and this current team, and getting out here and continuing to grow this awesome football program. And we're going to do that as it's already started. I haven't slept much here in the last couple of days. This thing was finalized late after midnight, after our game against Kentucky finished on Saturday night, and less than 9 hours later, I was on a plane headed to Columbia. So to all those 600 plus people that have sent me texts and called, I apologize that I haven't gotten back to you yet. I promise you I'm going to. I appreciate all of you reaching out. And like I said, I know I don't want to continue to stand up here and ramble. I know so many of you have questions, and just wanted to reiterate and say it one more time. It's an absolute honor to be the head football coach here at the University of South Carolina. To all of the Gamecocks that are listening and watching live, you have my word that we will work every single day to build a program that you are proud of. My last year here at Carolina, we got over to Atlanta and came up a little bit short in that championship game, and I will work tirelessly with my staff that we put together and our team to get back to Atlanta and finish the deal this time, to have a program that you are proud of with the way that we represent your university on and off the field. I have great pride in being from the state of South Carolina, and I have great pride in being the head coach of the University of South Carolina and representing this program, this state, and this university. It's extremely exciting for me. It gives me immense pride to put on a shirt with that Carolina logo. And we're going to have a team that you can be proud of that takes great pride in representing this university and having that Carolina logo on their helmet and on their jersey. So with that, I'll open it up to any questions. I appreciate your time, and thanks for those. Allow me to say those few remarks.
Ben Briner from the state has the first question.
Hey, Coach Beamer, congrats on getting the job. Welcome back to South Carolina. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned a little bit about getting the chance to work with Coach Riley. Philosophically, schematically, what kind of offense and defense are you going to try to build here with the Gamecocks? Well, it's one thing that I've learned from Lincoln is your system's got to be flexible enough where you can adjust it to the strengths of the players that you have. Our offensive system, for example, at Oklahoma is a little bit different right now, or a lot different than it was this year with Spencer Rattler, our quarterback, than it was last year with Jalen Hurts, and then a little bit different than it was the year before with Kyler Murray. So you've got to have a system that's flexible enough to accentuate the positives and what you have to work with. I've watched Carolina play a lot this year on television. I was kidding with Todd Ellis earlier. For the last 10 years, every Sunday night, my wife and I, we've always recorded the coaches show, and just to keep up with Carolina football and what's going on. And so I got a pretty good idea about the players in this program and what we do well. But at the end of the day, we want to be tough. It starts with toughness, starts with being physical. Offensively, I think you've got to be multiple. You've got to have the ability to run and pass from a system standpoint. You've got to be able to do both. This league is too tough, and we will be able to do both. You got to be explosive. In today's college football, the name of the game is explosive plays. We've got to be able to create those through scheme and through recruiting, and we certainly will. But that's what we want to be offensively, and then defensively, you got to be multiple. Offenses are too good nowadays. The name of the game is scoring points, and I've seen that the last 3 years out in Norman. We'll be about that here at South Carolina for sure. And then from a defensive standpoint, you got to be multiple. You can't line up in the same thing every time and allow teams to attack you that way. You've got to be able to affect the quarterback on defense. And then you've got to be so good fundamentally sound. You've got to be great tacklers. And those are things that I believe in and we won't deviate from.
Mike Barber in Richmond.
Hey, Shane, congratulations.
Good to see some Virginia guys on here.
Yeah, you are obviously not an old man, but it feels like it's been a long wait for you to get this opportunity. Does it feel that way to you? And were you at all frustrated in how long it maybe took?
No, I'm a man of faith, and I know that God has a plan. And my wife and I were talking about it a couple nights ago, that so many opportunities that were presented that I didn't take, some opportunities over the last 20 years that, frankly, I wanted to get that I didn't get. And I'm so thankful that I didn't, because it led me here to this day. And I mentioned it a minute ago, and it's the truth. when I'm working at the University of Georgia, I'm working at the University of Oklahoma, I'm coaching for my dad at Virginia Tech. I'm coaching at some of the premier institutions in this country. And it would, as much as I wanted to be a head coach, I knew the timing had to be right. I was really pleased with the steps that I was taking and the roles that I was in to make that opportunity become a reality. And frustrated, no. Things happen when they're supposed to happen, and I'm very confident in that. And I can say this, Mike, I wouldn't have traded any of the steps that I've been on in my entire career because of, one, it led me back here today, but two, just the way that it's prepared me to be a head coach. The different roles that I've been in, the different experiences that I've had, the experience has been unbelievable. I'm 43 years old, and I've been the son of a head coach my entire life. And so I've seen that firsthand, what it's about. And no, I haven't sat in that chair, but I've seen pretty good way of how to do that.
David Cloninger, Post and Courier.
Hello, Shane. Welcome back.
Thanks, David.
No problem. How will you be organizing your staff? Will you keep any of the assistants that were here last year?
Yeah, we're going through that process right now. I met with every single coach on our staff yesterday. It was important for me to get over here early yesterday morning and have 2 full days to dive into all that. And it starts with the players in this building and the coaches in this building. There's some great coaches on this staff. There are some coaches on this staff that I've worked with either here at Carolina or at different places. It's Coach Muschamp had put together a great staff of men, coaches, and recruiters. And there's certainly some guys on this staff that I would envision being in our program going forward. It's got to be the right fit for them and for us as a program. But I really had some good productive visits on that. I'm going to take my time on that. I've been preparing for this opportunity for a long time, and in the interview process, I feel pretty confident that I've presented a thorough plan for the staff to Coach Tanner and President Caslin and Chance, and we'll see how that transpires. I've coached with over 100 different full-time coaches in my career at 7 different Power 5 schools. That's not counting graduate assistants and analysts. The amount of people, the attention that I've gotten from people that are interested in coaching here. I've gotten calls from 4 head coaches in the NFL in the last 3 days, not wanting to come coach themselves, but recommending people that they felt strongly about. So the amount of people that have expressed an interest in being here is really cool. It's a little bit different from a time frame standpoint because so many of these coaches are still playing their own seasons, and they have teams to coach right now as well. And I want to get it done as soon as possible. There's no question about it, but I'm not going to be rushed. We're going to put together a premier staff. It's a perfect fit for Carolina.
Mark Berman.
How are you doing, Shane? Congratulations.
Appreciate it, Mark.
As you've said, how does being the son of a legendary coach, not only as a son, but you played for him and you worked for him, how has that shaped you into the head coach standing here today?
So many ways. I grew up the son of a coach, obviously. You mentioned I played for him. You mentioned I coached with him. So the experiences I saw from him, not only at Virginia Tech, but at Murray State. And people that have followed college football for a long time know that Virginia Tech always wasn't always what it was when he finished his career. There were some early lean years in our time in Blacksburg. My sophomore year in high school, Virginia Tech won 2 football games. That was his 6th year at Virginia Tech. He never would have made it past the 6th season in today's time. The year before that, I believe they won 5. He never would have made it to a 6th season. But being able to see how he handled that, the ups, the downs, his consistency and steadiness day in, day out. I hope I've taken a lot of qualities from my dad, but that's one that I definitely hope I've taken more than any other, is just that steadiness and consistency that you've got to have as a leader when everyone's looking at you. And if you're high and low and on an emotional roller coaster, it's going to be tough. And he's certainly that way. And I learned that from him and saw so many good things. He tells the story all the time that when I told him I wanted to get into coaching, he said, "Are you absolutely nuts? You've been around this profession and grew up in it, and you've seen the highs and the lows and want to be a part of it." And I did. So he certainly rubbed off on me in a lot of ways, and the desire to coach and those qualities certainly were right at the top.
Pete Acabelli.
Hey, Shane, congratulations again and welcome back.
Thank you.
What you mentioned that your dad would not have been allowed to stay 6 seasons in today's environment. How quickly do you envision turning things around here?
No, great question. Coach Tanner and President Caslin, they didn't hire me to come in here and present a 8-year plan or 5-year plan or anything like that. I'm a process-driven person, and we're going to get started day one advancing this program and making it better. That starts with the current players on our team. It starts with recruiting, getting more and more guys in here, and just trying to advance this program and getting a little bit better each and every day. I know it's cliche, but it's the truth. You can't think long-term. I'm trying to do everything that I can here, get this press conference, we'll finish this up, and then get right back on the phone with recruits and current players on this team and whatnot as well, and just move it forward a little bit more each and every day, and we'll get where we want to go, and hopefully that's sooner rather than later.
Rick Henry.
Hey, Shane, once again, congratulations and welcome home. During your time here with Coach Spurrier, what are some of the, I guess, the best lessons that you learned from him or things that you can apply now that you're a head coach? And also, head coaches, based on their backgrounds, if they come from the offensive side of the football, that's where they're going to spend their most time. If it's defense, like with Coach Spurrier, people would come to practice and ask me, hey, where's Coach Spurrier? I would say, look for the quarterbacks. And I was wondering if when we're allowed to come back to practice, where will we find you on the practice field?
I see what you did there. Good to see you, Rick, and glad you're doing well as well, and great to have you on this call. I learned a lot from Coach Spurrier. I mean, he's a guy that I grew up watching with what he did at the University of Florida. So I still remember sitting at a restaurant having lunch in Starkville, Mississippi, one February day, and I got a voicemail, or I got a cell phone call from an 803 area code, and it was Steve Spurrier calling to see if I was interested in coming to coach at the University of South Carolina. And what a surreal moment that was. And exciting as a guy that, as a fan of college football, grew up watching his Florida teams play, growing up in Blacksburg, Virginia, when he was the head coach of the Washington Redskins, and then had to have a guy of his stature call me and give me an opportunity was a really cool moment and a great opportunity, and learned so much from him. But really just the confidence and you guys know, the confidence and the swagger that he lived his life with each and every day, the competitive spirit that he had. I'll never forget going to play golf with him one day, and my first time, you guys know how he loves to play golf, and we went and played. The first time I ever got to play with him, I'd gone out the time before, and I played golf with a couple coaches and played pretty well, a little bit better than what I actually am. They came back to him and told him, Coach, this new coach you just hired's a heck of a golfer. He just went out and shot this and beat us and all that. So obviously that perked us up, got his attention perked up pretty quickly. Went and played golf, and he put me up in the A group, as he called it, which was his first group and his foursome, and got out there. I was nervous as all heck, and didn't play well the first 2 holes. And by the time we got to the third tee box, he had kicked me out of his group, told me that I needed to go back and play with the F troop behind us. And that was kind of my first indoctrination to Coach Spurrier and what a competitor he is. But he's that way on the golf course, and he was that way on the practice field, and coaching quarterbacks, calling offense. He was all about competing in everything that he did, and that was a great lesson for me to see that, and just the confidence. The players fed off that. When your head coach has that confidence that Coach Spurrier did, they feed off of it, and they play that way. And that's one of many things I certainly learned from him, and he certainly hasn't changed. And it's an honor for me to be the head coach here at a place where he did such a great job.
Colin Taylor.
Hey, Shane, just first of all, congrats on the new job. And I'm curious, you mentioned recruiting. How's that gone over the since you've been able to do it, and kind of what's been your pitch to either the guys you have committed in this class or the guys that you're now calling?
No, it's the response has been pretty amazing. A lot of these guys that we're currently recruiting at South Carolina, we were also recruiting at the University of Oklahoma, whether it be young men in this class that's about to sign, or young men in the 2022 class, 2023 class, and beyond. So I've got I got a good relationship with a lot of these guys because we were also recruiting them at Oklahoma. So when my name got out and was mentioned as a candidate, heard from so many of those guys that expressed an interest at potentially coming here and joining me here in Columbia, which is exciting. More and more guys like that have reached out. Continuing to figure out our plan going forward with the current commits in this class. Looking forward to getting on the phone with the rest of those guys. I've talked to a lot of them, and we'll continue to, the ones that I haven't been able to get in touch with. And like I mentioned it, just the amazing resources here and what this place has to offer. Amazing fan base, amazing city to live in, amazing state to represent, elite academics. You have everything. People talk about it's maybe a struggle to win at Carolina. Or why can't you win at Carolina? And you absolutely can. You have everything that you absolutely need to win here. We've done it before at a high level, and we're going to get back to that. I take great pride, like I said, in that Carolina logo on my chest and what this program and what this university means, and can't wait to get out and attack recruiting each and every day and work the competition and get high character, competitive guys that want to be in here and want to represent the University of South Carolina in this program.
Dean Tapikoff.
Hey, Shane, congratulations. You said you wanted to build a premier staff. Do you have a commitment from the university that you can spend money that would be at the high end of the SEC scale in building your staff? And then also, the last few years, South Carolina's had a very small staff of analysts. Would you like a larger staff of analysts, and what kind of resumes would you be looking for that gig?
No, there's my conversations with Coach Tanner and our leadership. We went through everything. We went through staff. We went through support staff. The investment has been made and given to me to give us every opportunity, every resource that we need to be successful. I've been around different aspects and spectrums when it comes to support staff, recruiting departments, and all that. Some programs where you have more than you know what to do with in a lot of ways, to the very smallest scale where it's the bare minimum. So I've seen both. I've seen both work, and we're going to do what's the best fit for Carolina. But I'm confident that anything that we need to advance this program forward and give us what we need to be successful, those assurances have certainly been given to me.
Bill Gorchow.
Hello, Coach. Congratulations and welcome back to Columbia. What I want to ask you is that this team, especially the last couple of seasons, has struggled to find ways to win. So I'm wondering, when you take over a program like this, how do you establish confidence in that winner's edge to find the results on the field?
Yeah, we talked about it yesterday in the team meeting. I'm big on competition, and we want to compete in every single thing that we do. We want to compete in off-season workouts when our guys get back and get into the weight room. We want to compete, obviously, on the practice field. We want to compete on the game fields on Saturday. But we also want to compete in the classroom. In everything that we do, I want to be about competition and being elite in all that we do and being the very best in all that we do, and learning how to win, and learning that developing leaders, all that stuff leads to winning. And there's no question, as we attack each day and try and move this thing forward with constant improvement, that we will learn that and put ourselves in position to be extremely successful.
Greg Hadley at the State.
Hey, Coach, congratulations. I was just curious, you mentioned the coaching timeline, putting that together, and how some of those guys are still working and recruiting and still going to Oklahoma. How chaotic are these next few weeks going to be for you?
Pretty chaotic. I haven't slept much since this thing was finalized, which is a good problem. And there's a lot to get done. But Coach Tanner was telling me earlier this morning an old Jim Valvano theory that you have 3 8-hour shifts in a day. And that's how we're going to attack this thing. Coach Riley and I have talked about it, and with our schedule that's set up at Oklahoma, certainly is very conducive to allowing me to do what I need to do as the head coach at South Carolina in the afternoons and evenings, and being able to do 2 different jobs. I saw Kirby Smart do it when he became the head coach at Georgia, when they were working for a playoff or in the playoff and for a national championship. So it's a little bit different. The time frame is certainly different, but it's going to be chaotic. I don't think there's enough hours in the day to do everything that we need to do. But one thing Lincoln told me yesterday is just compartmentalize things and get a thing what you have to accomplish each and every day, and try and attack that. You can't do it all at once, and it'll be chaotic, but I'm excited about it, and have a great group of people around me here in this facility to help me with that, and we'll get it done.
Eric Boynton.
Yeah, Coach, congratulations. Do you have to kind of settle in to a little time at South Carolina before and to take a look around and see what needs to be fixed? Or do you arrive in there with a plan in mind, certain steps, a certain process of just what it's going to take to get this program turned around as quickly as possible?
No, I mean, I certainly trying to get in here and learn as much about the program as I can. I've been following it from the outside. for the last 10 years and have a pretty good sense of what's in this program and where we are. But until you're sitting in that chair and until you're actually in this building and right in the middle of it as the leader, you're certainly going to find things. So I absolutely have a plan of how we're going to attack this and my vision going forward for sure. But then you learn something each and every day and utilize that and learn from it and grow. And that's what we're certainly going to do each and every day as this process gets rolling.
Mike Yuba.
Hey, Shane, welcome back to Columbia. Greg kind of asked you the question before in terms of and I know you talked about it at the beginning, in terms of balancing and finishing things out at Oklahoma. Does it make things, was it the decision a little bit easier this year in terms because of the recruiting and not being able to go on the road? Would that have changed things up for you a little bit? As well as, did you have a conversation with Ray Tanner about this before today?
We did. Coach Tanner and I, we talked through different scenarios throughout the interview process. The multiple times that we visited, we talked about different scenarios, what ifs, things like that. So we had a plan for every different scenario from an Oklahoma standpoint, from a South Carolina standpoint. We talked about it all and felt confident with the plan that we put together. And that's a good question. Obviously, it makes it easier because whatever I'm able to do from a recruiting standpoint is the same thing that any coach in this country is able to do right now from a competitive standpoint. They're not going on the road. And if this was a contact period where you are, it certainly would change things because I would need to be in living rooms tonight, without a doubt, and living rooms yesterday and so on and so forth. So it is different and fortunate that things work out the way they did, where as crazy as 2020 has been and as crazy as the different scenarios are with not being able to do things, that it makes this transition not easier, but a little bit more conducive to be able to do two jobs at once.
And Shane, I have to ask you one more question. Does Beamer Ball belong to your father, or is Beamer Ball coming to Columbia now?
There's certainly going to be aspects of Beamer Ball. I think that's probably copyrighted up in Blacksburg. But when you talk about Beamer Ball, you talk about the attacking, you talk about the ability to score on offense, defense, and special teams is what I think about when somebody says Beamer Ball. So we may not use the term Beamer Ball exactly, but playing that way and having that aspect as a part of our program is certainly something we're going to be about and opportunistic and attacking constantly whoever's on the field for us.
Cornblue.
Hey, there we go. Hey, Shane.
Hey, Phil.
Congratulations, and good to see you once again. I got three quick ones for you. It looks like, based on their Twitters, that Travaris Robinson and Kyle Krantz might be moving on. Can you confirm that, number one? Number two, if South Carolina is asked to play in a bowl game, is that something you want to do? And then number three, Clemson. When you left here, things were pretty even between the programs. Perhaps the Gamecocks were well ahead. It's kind of flipped since you've been gone. What are your plans about attacking the so-called Clemson problem for the Gamecocks?
Three questions, Phil, from one end of the spectrum to the other. I see a lot of things haven't changed in the 10 years since I left. All right, let me back up. The first one. Conversations that I had with our coaches yesterday, I'll keep between us and the coaching staff. There's certainly some things that are open-ended and want to keep those conversations private, and that's certainly between us. In regards to a bowl game, that's probably a better question for Coach Tanner and President Caslen. But I know for me, if South Carolina is playing in a bowl game, it would be a great resource, great opportunity for me to be able to come over. I would not coach in the bowl game, but at least have a chance to get around here and watch our guys practice and see what we're about on the field. Bowl games are always good because in a lot of ways it's an extra spring practice. You get a chance to get out there and develop young guys and continue to move this program forward. So if we're able to do that from my standpoint, I think that would be great. And you mentioned that program in the upstate, and they're certainly on a pretty good run right now. But when I was here before, we were on a pretty dang good run ourselves against those guys as well. And it's a big challenge, and we're going to work every single day in recruiting in this facility to have a team that we can be proud of on the field, and that'll result with the way we play, the way we play on the field, and certainly great respect for those guys. But looking forward to getting in there and competing. I know that for a fact.
Josh Kendall.
Hey, Shane.
When you talk about the preparations that you've made to become a head coach, what did that look like? Is that a bunch of binders in your house? Is that scribbling stuff down on napkins or putting notes in your phone? What was the process?
The above. For one, I would say the roles that I've had, Josh, have prepared me for this opportunity. I've coached offense, I've coached defense, and I've coached special teams. So I've got a pretty good knowledge of all three phases in football. When you're the special teams coordinator, you have to manage an entire roster, not just the positions, the guys that you coach or your side of the ball. You have to have relationships with, if I'm coaching tight ends, I've got to have a relationship with the linebackers coach, the defensive backs, the defensive line, the offensive line. The special teams coordinator is the only coach other than the head coach that stands in front of the entire team and talks. So that won't be the first time. Yesterday wasn't the first time I ever did that as an assistant coach. I've been a recruiting coordinator. When you're the recruiting coordinator, you have experience. You have to manage a roster. You have to evaluate talent. You have to manage a coaching staff. You have to manage roster numbers. I had that experience. Growing up the son of a coach, like you talked about, those experiences. I've been an associate head coach. In December 2014, my dad had some health issues that prevented him from coaching for an entire month and coaching in a bowl game. So for an entire month, I was the acting head coach of the football program at Virginia Tech. I ran staff meetings. I ran practices. I put together game plans. And then we went out there and beat a great Cincinnati team in the Military Bowl. So having that experience was beneficial. In those duties as an associate head coach, doing a lot of things like media, fundraising, discipline, a lot of those aspects I've got experience doing in my role with Lincoln Riley at Oklahoma as the assistant head coach for offense, continuing to grow that as well. And then I'm a meticulous note taker. Kim Fields, who is our assistant director of operations here at South Carolina and is an absolute rock star. Kim was here when I was here before, and back in 2007, I started keeping a binder of just ideas if I ever got this opportunity. Kim helped me put it together and started typing it, and I still carry the same binder to this day. It definitely needs to be updated from when she started it back in 2007, but it's just thoughts when it comes to discipline, team travel, nutrition, weight room, coaching staff, motivation, you name it. I've been putting things in that. And then every team meeting, every staff meeting that I've been a part of in my coaching career, I've got notes on. So being able to refer back to that and a binder or an iPad Pro or whatever it might be is right there. But until you're in that chair, you can prepare all you want. When you sit in that chair, it becomes very, very real, and you realize that. But the way that I prepare myself, I'm certainly confident in my ability to do that. And like I said earlier, I wouldn't have traded my path to this day and the roles that I've had for anything.
Cox.
Hey, Shane. Congratulations. Welcome back to South Carolina. Two quick questions. First one, do you plan to have your father involved in any capacity in your program? And number two, projected that South Carolina could possibly be invited to play Virginia Tech in a bowl game. What would be your thoughts on that?
Wow. I hadn't heard that. That'd be pretty amazing. Things certainly come full circle. So we'll see what happens with that. And yeah, Coach Tanner and I talked about that with my dad and his role. And obviously we want to do everything within NCAA rules clearly, but Coach Tanner brought that up during the interview process. And without speaking to my dad, I promised Coach Tanner that my dad would certainly be involved heavily in the program. So the minute that, or shortly after that 5.5-hour interview that I had with President Caslin and Coach Tanner and Chance finished, I called my dad and told him how it went. And I said, look, I'm sorry, but I may have spoke for you and promised something that I can't get back out of. But no, he's all for it. He loves this place. He enjoyed coming here to visit. When we lived here before, I still rely on him and his expertise to this day. Still call him and ask advice, whether it be X's and O's questions or just football leadership questions. And Lincoln was very accommodating to my dad when he came out to games at Oklahoma, to practices at Oklahoma, allowed him to sit in meetings. And I certainly want him involved in our program as well. I don't know how much it'll be because of me or because he's got 3 grandchildren that'll now be living in Columbia and then 3 grandchildren that are in Charlotte with my sister. So whatever excuse we got to use to get him down here and the great golf courses in this area, I'm pretty confident that you'll be seeing him a lot around this program.
Got to leave it there with Shane Beamer in Columbia, South Carolina. I don't think I've ever seen somebody who has won the press conference more than what Shane has been able to do. Darren, well, obviously, we'll have so much reaction on this tomorrow with David Cloninger, Perry Orth, and Gene Sapikoff. But nonetheless, as we're set to get out of here in just about a minute or so, and he's still continuing. So if you'd like to continue to watch that, head to the YouTube page for South Carolina. It's fascinating. The Coach Tanner, as of now, he has hit a home run.
Like
Grand
you said,
slam. Grand slam.
winning the press conference. Yeah, people have heard that term. Sometimes you're not exactly sure what it means. That's what it means. Yeah. This guy is all about South Carolina.
That's unbelievable.
Recording coaches shows for 10 years while he's been coaching in other places. I mean, some of the stuff that came out today is
I've never heard it before.
It's wild. It's wild. And this is, if you're not excited about at least the potential here, then I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah, this is it's something to see. We'll continue to monitor this. We're back tomorrow at noon. Thanks to JC Shurburtt, Wes Mitchell, Pat DiMarco, and Mike Uva for joining us today on the JV and Goldwater Show, and all of you for watching, listening to our program. Again, full reaction on the new head football coach of the Gamecocks, Shane Beamer, and more tomorrow right here on the JV and Goldwater Show, driven by Stokes Volkswagen.